Thank you. 5. And now let me open up.
This is so sweet. I haven't had to use the projector yet.
Yeah, right?
It's just like turned it on. In the past, we like had this thing that we brought from the back.
Do you want to enter your password?
I know it.
Yeah, it's nice to have the remote just sticking to the side. Cool. So there's two things, right? There's going to be the PDF attachment, and then there's a link to an article by Cheryl Strayed.
Okay.
And then we'll just have them both. Hey. The chairs? The table? It is. It's an option.
Okay, because I could feel like I could see this better.
That's cool. Sit where you're comfortable.
Okay.
Sit where you're comfortable. I just want everyone to have a place to write where they feel good. Cool. Oh, you do? Cool. We're such writers. We're like, we need the perfect.
Selfish writers.
That's all right.
I don't want to be in a big group.
That's all right. I'm a selfish writer too. Did you get it?
Yes.
Cool.
So you should display.
Oh. So the PDF is the one. It's the Octavia. It's an Octavia Butler. Yeah. Is there any way to make that a little bit larger, just so we have it ready? Maybe this sign.
Yeah, we can probably full screen.
Yeah. How's that? Can you see it?
We can put it in a different.
One more?
Yeah. Let me try.
Perfect. Nice. Right. And then there's the other link. It's in the actual email. It's called The Love of My Life.
Oh yeah, I clicked that.
And it brought you nowhere? Yeah,
Oh,
it
it
is.
worked. Perfect.
How does that look? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, this is exciting. I'm so excited. It's the first time I do a live stream with my workshop. So this is going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. All the glitches. We're just going to rock with it. So everyone get comfortable. Make sure that you're like nourished. That's what we're trying to do. Anybody want some chicken?
I'm good, thank you.
I just whipped down some bowl myself in like 10 minutes flat. So we have 32 people RSVP'd.
Wow, that's great.
That's amazing.
Very Hispanic for us not to be here on time.
That's amazing. Here, take some. Ooh, no.
I needed like a real like
Wow.
something. Take some, please.
No, enjoy.
Some chicken finger.
Oh, it smells so good. Hi. Hey, welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Sit anywhere. Anywhere.
Take the time now to test them out.
Exactly.
I already done that.
What's up,
Oh,
family?
it's over here, yeah.
Tawana, we have to talk. I need to send you an email. We need to chat. Can we make some time? Welcome, everyone. We're just going to be starting a little bit late because people are showing up, and we have 32 people RSVP'd. So I'm going to say a hard start time, 1:15, 1:15. I'll start with the welcome and all of that. So grab some tea, grab some coffee, grab a glass of wine, whatever you need. Hello, Miss Angie. And gentlemen. Can you tell me how the sound? I'm gonna plug in my mic. Can you?
The laptop? The sound only?
We're in real time, but the people who are
No,
live,
the sound is gonna come strictly from there. You're gonna connect it to like.
Yeah, I don't know what the.
I have my mic.
Oh, okay.
Let me know. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna test the mic and you tell me how it sounds, how we look. For those of you who are joining, something is happening to the screen. Tell me Tell me how this is sounding. Can you hear me? Take. We ready. What's up?
How's the baby?
She's so beautiful.
She's still in the hospital?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. After here, I go there. She's
There's gonna be 32 people. Oh, you wanna move it
You
out?
wanna come with me to see her? There's two of us.
Yeah.
Oh, she's at the children's hospital?
Absolutely.
I sound good? Excellent. There are two links that you should open up in the email or in my Instagram or in my newsletter. There's a link that has a PDF for Octavia Butler and a Cheryl Strayed essay. Pull them up so you have them, so then when we get to that on the agenda, you know.
Can you send it to me?
It's my La Santera. Let me get my phone. So I can send it to you.
That's the name of the channel?
It's La Santera or Alicia Anabel Santos. Pens, we got markers. Yes, writers are getting ready, journals out. If you need anything to drink, any water, I think there's someone sitting there.
Here.
Oh, he's here?
Yeah.
This is his seat? Okay. Because he likes playing this table. You know how we are, we can be territorial. Yeah, it's all right. Yes, yes. Yeah, you all should have gotten an email from me, right? Oh, everyone got the essays? What's that?
I only read one.
That's all right. Did you read Octavia or the essay Cheryl
Yes.
Strayed?
Yeah, sure.
Did you like that? No.
Were you sitting on this side?
No, this one.
I thought you were sitting here.
No, here.
Because I told you it was
Yes.
here, so.
No, no.
I'm actually gonna.
Go ahead, you move
I need the
an outlet.
yeah.
I'm actually gonna go to the outlet. Oh, okay.
I can't see well. That's why I
I'm gonna switch with you, the outlet.
That's what I said.
No, that's fine. Even my glass.
I'm gonna mute this so you're not hearing all this noise.
No, I tried to do it online with.
T, I muted it so you wouldn't hear all of the noise. Yeah, I didn't want you to hear all of the noise as people were getting comfortable. Yes, it's muted. Hey, family. Welcome, welcome. We're starting in about 2 minutes. So have your journal on deck. If you haven't already done so, there are two attachments. I sent an email or I posted on my blog. If you follow me on Instagram, there's a link in my bio that has the welcome letter for today, as well as the attachments. So please find that there, or go to my aliciaanabelsantos.wordpress.com. It's on my blog. It's also, if you receive my newsletter, you got it this morning. And those of you who are following me, you know what, you're on my YouTube. So what's up, Instagram? You're live for a second, but go to YouTube Live. My YouTube channel is La Santera or Alicia Anabel Santos, and you'll have access to the entire session today. I am gonna shut this down after my intro to the workshop because I can't navigate all this technology and the people who are in front of me. That's doing a lot, that's doing the most. So I'm happy you're here. I'm sending you that love.
Are you okay, my stranger?
You do you. I don't gotta worry about that.
I'll stream it on my end, on Dominican.
Yes. All right. What's our time? It's time. I'm starting. Go to YouTube. Yeah, because I can't do all that. I gotta go. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome to our free intro Writing from the Womb workshop. I am so excited to have you here. Y'all showed up. Y'all showed up on time. And so I'm really excited. I'm excited to be starting off the year with you, with writers in general. I believe in creating a writing community and also holding space for writers seeking community. My name is Alicia Anabel Santos. Those of you who follow me on Instagram, it's La Santera. I am the writing midwife. I am a mom. I have been writing since 2001 and self-published my memoir, Finding Your Force, A Journey to Love, in 2011. I have facilitated countless workshops, but Writing from the Womb, I launched it in 2013. How many years is that?
6.
7, to be 7 years. So this is a lucky 7. And so Writing from the Womb, the intention, well, I've had many workshops. So I had a workshop for men, writing with intention, writing rituals. I had a writing meditation workshop that I've done. I facilitate a writer's retreat every year. I co-host with my partner, Josely Castillo, Sankofa Sisterhood, and we go to the Catskills every Memorial Day weekend. This is our 6th year that we host a house of like 15 women writers. I'm sorry to the men. I am going to do something that's more inclusive, but I just believe in like holding this space for like women that's sacred so that they feel safe in telling their stories, you know? And so Writing from the Womb has taken a lot of shape. It was a 40-week workshop. It was 9 months to help people give birth to their story. It was a 5-week workshop. It was a 6-week workshop. And I'm a writer, so I love facilitating workshops, but I need to create space to do my own writing. Because if I'm holding space for everyone else, and so I'm very selfish in that way too. You're not alone. Because I believe in that. I believe in making time to honor my craft. So I balance my year out. So I do a Writing from the Womb in the spring, and then I do one in the fall, and then that's it. And my summers are for me. I don't teach, I don't speak, I work on my own writing. And so I'm so excited to have you all here, and let's get into it. So let's start with some intros. Can we do that? Like, who's in the space? I know intros are hard sometimes. Why don't we write? Let's write. Because we're writers. Let's do that. Let's get some writing done. Let's get to the prompts.
Is this seat taken?
All right. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. I'm going to move through a series of writing prompts just to help you get comfortable. If you want to take off your jacket, like everyone, really feel yourself in the space. You know, if you're feeling warm, if you're someone who likes to sit on the floor, yes, you can record. This class is going to be on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch it, you know, and like take notes if you're someone that likes to be present. Like I'm a person that I like to record everything and then sit back, play back, and meditate on things. So do you. Take care of you. If you need to the bathroom is here. Please silence your phones. Or just put it on vibrate, whatever. You ready? I write because that's your first prompt. Write that down and begin writing. I write because this is your why. What brought me to the page? What brought me to the page? What brings me to the page? Prompt 3. When did I know I was a writer? I knew I was a writer when Are you joining us?
No, es un taller que cada todos los domingos, pero cada semana hay jueves. Sí, sí, no, la gente escribe como se lee como pero si quiere ver un libreta aquí, puede le dan una pecera. Esa libreta,
Sí,
What I like to write about is this is everything. Could be what you're working on right now, something you want to work about, essay ideas, poems. Like, what are the themes? What do you like to write about or you're interested in writing about? Because that will also help like design the syllabus, right? Like if some of us are interested in flash fiction, we'll read closely some flash fiction pieces and create that, you know?
you using this now?
I'll take it.
Alicia, what was your last?
The first prompt was, I write because. Prompt 2, what brought me to the page. Prompt 3, When I knew I was a writer. Prompt 4, what I like to write about. You can also come take a picture of my screen for the prompts. I'm going to move on to the next one. Prompt 5, the story I was born to write. This is the one you know you must write. You're here to write. You have to write it. The story I was born to write. Only you could write this story. It's your perspective. Even if it's a thing that's been written thousands of times, there's a new take that you are going to tell. Sorry, everyone. What keeps me from writing is those of you on YouTube, that was thrown in. That last one, I'm sorry. What keeps me from writing? What keeps me from the page? What are the reasons I don't show up for myself? What are the reasons I run from it? What is it? What keeps me from the page? What keeps me from telling the story? What keeps me from committing to owning it? Wow, it's flying by, yo. Woo! Your next prompt. Who I write for. I write for who do I write for? This story, this essay, this poem is for who? Who are the people that you bring into this writing room? Like when you think of yourself as a writer, right? And you're like really grounded in your why. This is why I answered the call. This is what I know to be true about me as a writer. This is what I love about the writers that I, admire and look up to. Like, who do I write for? Like, is it your abuela? Is it your country? Is it your nationality? Like, only you know who you want to write for. Who are you doing this for? Because this is why this is what should help us, right? This is what I hope helps us to come to the page, to remember why, even though writing can be scary and lonely, and many of us are filled with like self-doubt that we're not enough, we remember that these are the people I'm doing this for. It's bigger than me. Finish that thought. Stretch your fingers, right? There's a few more. I'm opening you wide open. What my writing will contribute to. This is us thinking about our writing as part of a larger conversation. Around what? If it's YA, it might be identity. It might be sexuality. It might be belonging, right? What is the larger conversation? Because that helps us to really look at our writing. I don't like to keep the audience in the room with me when I'm writing because I don't like to be censored. I like to be free with how I flow and how I tell my truth. But I also know I write for brown girls. I write for Black and brown girls. and a larger conversation around abuse, violence. You know, like there are things that for me, I hope that my writing contributes to. So this is what I want you to be thinking. What is my writing a contribution of? What will it contribute to? What conversation? I'm writing a memoir about rage. Like, I'm hoping to liberate some people, if I'm being honest. You can have the audacity. You can have the audacity to say, I'm going to be a part of this conversation. We can give ourselves permission to be a part of a new canon that we're creating for ourselves. Yeah, exactly. Your next two prompts are a combo. Why I came here today and what I need support with. What do I need? Why do I need community, right? Why I came here today and why I could use some community. What I bring into this space, I believe we all bring something, and I believe that we get what we bring, right? There's a certain thing that we each as writers bring into our communities. What I bring into this space today, because every class, every session is going to be different. Some days are going to be hard. Some days are going to be exciting, you know. Today, what are we bringing today? Those of you on the YouTube, when I start asking to share some prompts, I want you to post them in the live chat so I can read them there, okay? And then your last prompt is my intention for today. Before I begin any writing session, I set an intention. What am I bringing? What am I looking at? Is my intention today to explore male voices? Is my intention today to write about violence? Is my intention today to write about whatever? My intention for today, what's your intention for this writing experience, for this writing workshop? What are you bringing us, right? And that's scene. Let's breathe. How are we feeling? Let's take a temperature. How are we doing? One word. How are you feeling?
Released.
Released.
Empowered.
Empowered.
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Inspired.
Inspired.
Strange.
Strange. Cool. My love. How are you feeling? One word.
Malicious.
Anxious. I received that.
Light.
Light.
I'm excited.
Excited.
Full.
Full.
Fulfilled.
Fulfilled.
Emotional.
Emotional.
Liberated.
Liberated. Inspired. Vulnerable. In the space. I feel excited. And ready. Excited and ready. There is a lot of vulnerability. There is anxiousness around writing. There's some stuff that we inherited, right? So one of the reasons why the workshop is called Writing from the Womb, and I know that the term is uncomfortable for some people. Some men feel excluded, right? Some women feel like that's not necessarily the place that they write from. So I think it's important to start with how I define womb, right? There's womb, that's the feminine, where we give birth. So for me, I'm taking womb as the place where creativity lives in order to give birth to an idea, right? To give birth to an idea, to a story, to give birth. And we know, like when we look at biology, that the womb is a space that, women create. And it's like this length of time before this birth happens, right? Writing is that way too. It takes time. There's a process. Sometimes I think where we get caught up as writers is we're looking at the end and not necessarily the journey. And if we allow things to like live in that womb for a little while and like take its time to come into the world, we'll be a lot better for it, you know? And so before I like get into like course description and what it looks like, I want to hear from each of you. I want you to share your name, and then I want you to share any prompt, one prompt that you pick to share. I don't care what it is. What I do want to hear is when I knew I was a writer. So your prompt 3. The story I was born to write. And my intention for today. When I knew I was a writer. What was the second one?
The story I was born to write.
The story I was born to write. And the third one was my intention.
Which was the last one, right?
The last one. And then any other one you want to read, because you want to bring that to us. But please start. And then we're going to go this way around the room.
All right. I know I was a writer when my 7th grade teacher said I should enter a poetry contest after an assignment.
Share your name. I'm sorry.
Edgar.
Edgar. And then start again. Start again.
All right. I knew I was a writer when my 7th grade teacher said I should enter a poetry contest after a class assignment. Although I smiled and saw dollar signs because the competition awarded the first place winner with $25,000,
Wow.
I missed the truth that said I was a writer.
Mm.
Years down, I came across my best friend and high school peers who freestyled during lunch and started after high school at the age of 20 writing raps in my notebook with my best friend. I thought back and never let go that in 2nd grade, I got 2nd place in a state writing contest.
Mm.
That's that one. The
Yes.
story I was born to write. The quitter that never quit. A memoir other motivator to not stay giving up on after quitting something. As opposed to self-motivator is for others. So I call it other motivator. It just didn't fit nor feed your soul or no longer continues to drive your passion into a road you thought was paved for you. It's okay to quit, but never give up on finding yourself, for breathing without living is waiting to die. The quitter that never quits tries every single interest that falls on his lap, whether through his own endeavors or someone else's attractive idea. Starting and stopping or starting anew has become the norm, but now it's time to stick to something, especially if it was your idea. See it through to the end. You don't know. Then I stopped there because we moved on to the next prompt. And the last one is, my intention for today is practice just putting words down. Get through the rough draft to completion. And later practice its proper format and use of vocabulary to remind myself that the work needs to be done in order to receive the feeling of accomplishment, never having accomplished too much in my life with all I've encountered or taken into account as my own.
If we were in our actual class, we would be providing each other with feedback. So every session starts this way. There are rituals. I believe in rituals. It's important for me as someone who has ADD. You know, I have a lot of ideas a lot of the time, and so I use a lot of time management tools. I have a lot of rituals and practices that I need to have in order to get down. I mean, when I first started, I wrote anywhere, everywhere, but now my writing has taken more of it. Sit your ass down, 25 minutes, and stay right here.
Yeah.
And so if we were in our writing from the womb, we would just share feedback. And so I would reflect to you that I already love your title, right? I already love that, The Quitter That Never Quits. And it felt for me like there's a lot of watching this person on a journey, having a lot of fun just trying new shit,
Right.
and then fucking failing epically in some places. But there's learning in that failure, right? So I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited for you. And I loved your intention, practice to completion. And so we would have one person kind of mirror, and we'll do that. Maybe the next person, someone will say, I want to reflect one thing that I heard. All right? Cool. Thank you, Edgar. Yeah. Yes, please. Your name and then your prompts.
My name is Emma Suarez, and oh yes, okay. I knew I was a writer when my writing spoke to me, and when it spoke to others. When I found that writing was living twice over, like Dillard says.
Mm-hmm.
The story I was born to write is the story of being enchanted by the Caribbean Ocean, coming from another place and making space in a new place, constructing a family different from my original one. I bring into this space a need to share, to hear, to judge, and catch myself judging. My intention today is to be as real as I can be, to write and challenge myself to think new thoughts or old thoughts in a new way.
Thank you. One person, what did you hear? Anyone?
Well, I mean, the part about the Caribbean being enchanted, that just moved me. So I'm excited about that.
Yay.
That was different.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so I knew I was a writer.
Your name.
Oh, my name is Jasmine. Jasmine Cáceres. Okay. I knew I was a writer since I was very young. Every year there was an award ceremony at school, and I always got the Creative Writing Award. My teachers would always encourage me to enter citywide essay contests, which I would enter and win first or second place citywide. My mom still has all of those awards. I didn't always nurture that talent. It's kind of been on and off. It's come in waves throughout the years, but I'm ready to really hone into that, and nurture that. Next prompt. Ooh, the story I was born to write. This is scary because I don't know if I want to say this out loud, but okay. Not sure if I was born to write one particular story or poem. I just want to share my gifts and touch whoever I can, but I feel like the Bronx Pussy Diaries. The Bronx Pussy Diaries is a one-woman play that I'm writing. Okay. The Bronx Pussy Diaries needs to be told because there is a double standard and a stigma around the woman who is too sexual. I want to take you guys on a sexploration of some of my sexual encounters on my first year as a single woman after being in a toxic relationship for 7 years. Exploring different worlds when it came to my sexuality, such as BDSM, and exploring everything, what am I writing here? And explaining everything I like and fucking whoever I want to fuck with no shame. Women shouldn't be made to feel ashamed for being sexual. Women should be unapologetic about their sexuality and the ability to explore it freely.
Who wants to offer feedback? Who wants to mirror something back? Please. Come on. What you heard.
For me, as also like a liberated woman, I love websites like Refinery 29 and I love Essence, but then Essence won't ever talk about what she's talking about. So I feel like there's a huge window of opportunity for you to fill up that space as a brown woman, because even brown publications don't go there. Like a white publication will have those headlines on like all the sex things that you're talking about, but then some of the black ones or even Latina ones won't because it's too raunchy or it's too. So I think there's a great opportunity there for you to own that space.
I just want to add, you were so brave. That was so brave to share with complete strangers. And so kudos to you, actually.
Alicia, you bring that out.
I love you. That's what I'm talking about. We are safe. We are safe. What we say here stays here, right? Our community. So thank you for mirroring that.
Yeah,
Because we need that affirmation, that mirror. So thank you. Yeah.
There's a conference called the Sister Song Conference. I don't know if anyone has heard of it.
What is the name?
The Sister Song?
The Sister Song?
Yeah, it's like of reproductive justice, but it's based in Georgia. I did a couple of workshops there, but it's about like reproductive justice and sexual liberation and all this stuff. So we did like this nudity workshop, like everyone was naked, only women though, but it's amazing. It's just about embracing our sexuality and all this other, there's a lot more other things to it, but it's awesome. Beautiful to be in a space with people of color and like from like all types of minority women, and just because it is something that is hard to talk about, like sexuality just in general, in every type of way, abortion or being gay or anything, especially being Hispanic or Black or anything. So it's just layers of stuff. So it's great that you're writing about that.
Awesome. My dear, your name and your prompts.
My name is Yolanda, and I missed most of the prompts, so I'm just gonna kind of go with why I came here today and my intention for today, because it's kind of intertangled. So my intention for today was pretty much just to be present. I came because I feel like my writing doesn't neatly fall into a category. I feel like it's something else. I actually feel like it should be many things else, but it can't be what I don't allow it to be. It has to have a place and time to be that, so I kind of wanted to explore doing that today and just giving it the time to do that. And it needs to have what it needs to grow and take shape. It can't be stifled, but it is. And so it fights.
Someone want to mirror that?
I hear searching for clarity, and I just feel that because even when we're answering the prompt about like what themes and what are like who are we writing for, it was difficult because you feel like you don't want to get boxed in, right? But sometimes you need those kind of outlines and that structure and those bones to help you get to your story. So I hear that.
Thank you. Please.
Okay, my name is Rafael Pavon. I didn't know I was coming here. I came here to see a friend, an old friend. I want to stay.
Yes.
So I am like trying to caer en tiempo. Okay. I realized I was a writer when I decided to stay a Friday night in my room inside instead of hanging out. I said, wow, this is really made me feel complete. In Puerto Rico, I was a writer. I used to work in the court as a conflict mediator, and I was writing a lot of short stories, chronics in Facebook, and somebody find out about my chronic and they fired me. So I was like dealing with a lot of issues. I still I am demanding the Puerto Rico government because of that. I have a good case because it was free of speech. My writing were a little political, so I didn't like it. So here I am. I'm gonna continue writing.
Yes.
My story is about the Caribbean in my blood, being here in the United States, maintaining, defending my Caribbean blood, the rhythm, the musicality, the colors, the sound, los olores, todo eso.
Beautiful.
So de eso que yo escribo, chronics. And what was the last one?
My intention.
Oh, my intention to stay until the end and to come back the next time.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's fantastic. Omar, is it? Omaris.
When I started reading stories that I could see myself in and I could relate to, and I wanted to do the same. I know I was a writer when my writing started to move myself. When I realized how powerful my story is, and when I found myself crying when I was writing. The story I want to write, I was born to write, I can't even answer it, but I feel like I'm going to answer that I like to write about, because I think that's what's going to be the answer to my question. I like to write about how my joyful experiences and my pain and how my painful ones caused them. I like to write about my dreams and how my nightmares got me there. My intention for today is to be open, to challenge myself to get my thoughts on the paper, and to create time.
Who wants to reflect back? To both,
I want to
actually.
reflect on his.
Yes, go ahead.
So with his, I like that you're fighting for what you believe in for your chronics. That's something that I always stayed away. I don't like confrontation. So like that moves me that there's still people out there fighting for what they believe in, and I'm inspired to be that way. So I like that.
Yes, and someone mirror back
It
for us.
resonated for me how you said that your pains got you to your joys and your nightmares got you to your dreams.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes and yes. Please.
Where do I start? My intention for today.
Your name.
I'm sorry. My name is Freddy Vasquez Rodriguez, and I use the Rodriguez because on my mother's side of the family, I was the first college graduate. And so to honor my mother, I carry Rodriguez. That's why people ask me, why do I carry both? Are you married? So I say that that's the reason. So to honor my mother is why I carry Rodriguez.
Beautiful.
And my intention for today is to give myself the permission to speak. I often feel like I don't have the permission to speak. I have a play which I'm trying to put together, which the name right now is not a set name, is Magdalena Popa Rivera. And how I came up with that name is because of my own identity, my own struggles with my own identity, because I'm not identified as non-binary. I don't identify with a specific gender. And so a lot of my family members and friends couldn't understand that. What do you mean? You're neither male, neither female? I said, no, I don't identify with either one. And so my true struggles, what I write is talking about el movimiento, I don't know, I'm trying to say how to say it in English, el movimiento revolucionario de Puerto Rico. I am an independentista, and so I write about that. I write about my own identity, and I write about the struggles of my own identity. I can identify what you shared earlier. You said ADHD. I'm ADHD, and so and so I knew I was a writer when I couldn't give myself the permission to speak publicly. So that's when I knew I was a writer, because I felt like even as I speak now, I don't feel comfortable with speaking. But when I write differently. So you would never. So sometimes when I look at my writing, I'm like, who wrote this? And so and sometimes I don't, even still today I struggle with speaking. And so even at work, I'm a social worker. I'm glad that I do a lot of writing, because that's how I best communicate with people. Sometimes when I speak into my clients, I write something, a script, before I speak to them, because that's how I feel most comfortable speaking. And so and it comes from my own personal experience, because I wrote a poem which is called Permission to Speak. I brought it with me, but it's too long to read at this moment. But basically it talks about how I felt that from that relationship, I always needed to ask permission to speak. I needed to ask of him permission to speak. And then in my writing, I talk about how I never needed his permission to speak. And so and when I write, I don't use gender. And I realized that part of the reason why I don't use gender is because I try to hide myself. I was part of a playwright unit at the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, and one of the founders of the founder of Puerto Rican Traveling, Miriam Colon Valle, she said, I asked her, I said, I noticed that you do a lot of acting, but you don't write. And so, so one of the things she said to me was, and I'm quoting, and it's not an exact quote, is she said, to be a writer, you have to have the courage to reveal yourself. And so I haven't had the courage to reveal myself in my writing. So I know that's what stops me from writing my story.
Thank you for sharing that. Someone wanna?
I resonated with some of the things that you said, like the last thing that you said about revealing yourself. I feel that you won't fully heal from your own, shortcomings or trials with your identity until you come clean 100% with yourself. So we won't fully heal. Right. Even if it's not about writing to be published, or writing for your soul's liberation.
Yeah.
Like
that's real.
That has to happen. Yeah.
That's a wonderful point that you bring up, because in how many ways are we like incarcerated, or we keep ourselves from really speaking that truth, from hiding behind the words. I'm a lot like you too. I've always believed that I'm a better writer than I am a speaker, and it's really like pushing the comfort. So like me having my podcast and all, that's all new shit. That's like brand new, because I write everything, like even in preparation for our workshop today, which I know I should be comfortable in my own skin. I've done this for 7 years now, but it's like, I want to make sure that I convey it, but so there is something, and that's one of the weeks we talk about voice and being authentic and what keeps us incarcerated. Reading works that help us to tell the truth, to find our true voice, not someone else's, right?
And I also believe that apart from writing, for me, the humor is really important in the writing. That's something that every time I write, I have some kind of humor because that's the way. I don't know. I feel better when I utilize humor, even if we're talking about something really sad. I mean, you know how to use humor, but for me it really works out.
I love that. That's wonderful that you have humor because some shit is not funny right now. These days, this day and age, some shit just is not funny. So to have that gift is wonderful. To be able to balance like the serious with the humor is a gift for real, for real. Fantastic.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn, and I'll start by saying that what you said about being able to speak, I am so nervous right now. So bear with me. I knew I was a writer when I was prompted to create a poem for English class in college, and it just flowed to just write that. I was able to put into words what I was feeling, what I wanted others to see in me. I knew I was a writer when after my first poem was criticized, I was okay with it. Moving forward and putting into words what my first book would be. The story just flowed while at the library. I became my outlet. It became my way of expressing my fantasies. The story I was born to write is the one that will help others go through something I have gone through. The one that was actually not out there for me. I searched, I looked everywhere for my story, and I didn't find it. It was in, I would say it, for white people. Understanding secondary fertility as a Latina. It's not something spoken in the families. It's not something that's written down how to deal with it. So I'm hoping to help others go through that. The other thing was my intention for today is to start, to open the doors. They have been locked for many years, and I'm ready to just be out here, I guess. And me speaking in front of you, I guess, a start.
Yay.
The other thing that I wanted to speak about is what keeps me from writing. And I think it's myself, my fears, my fear of rejection, my fear that everyone will know how I feel, my fear of everyone not understanding what I write, my fear of not knowing if I'm truly a writer.
Who would like to mirror that?
I can mirror that because
Yeah.
I oftentimes I noticed, and I'm going to say this because I think it's important to say it. I noticed that I didn't have to read the poem I wrote, but I could have read parts of it to get you to know part of myself. And I noticed that I hesitated to read it because because parts of these poems reveals who I am. And so it's so I struggle with that.
So I
With
was,
revealing myself.
for the last thing you said, and now I lost it. I'm so sorry. Whether you're a true writer or not.
Right.
So, whether you're published or not published, whether somebody reads you or it doesn't, you are a writer because it burns in you and you have a story to tell. And that's it. The other stuff is like wallpaper. It's important, it makes things beautiful, but it has nothing to do with what you have and the gift that you have.
Gotcha. I really appreciate that because I think there's two things that happen. There's us wanting to write to be published, to be seen, to be heard. We can do that by creating our own blog. You know, it's making the choice about how we want to step out and have the courage to just reveal who we are, like, and show up as we are unapologetically. That's key. And so thank you for speaking your truth, right? And saying I'm a writer, because that's huge.
Yeah.
And many writers will struggle with that, will not give themselves permission to say I'm a writer, even if you read my work or not, I'm a writer every day, period, and seen. So yeah, thank you, my dear.
My name is Gisling Leon, and I knew that I was a writer. I read a lot of sexual stories as a preteen, as a teenager, milk in my coffee, The Coldest Winter Ever, all those Zane books.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
and the list just went on. I spent a lot of time at the library, and I was a virgin. I was 16 years old, and I have a list of stories, like little stories that I wrote. So I knew that I was a writer because I was able to, go on a visual journey with this, made up man that lived in my novela dreams into short stories. And I don't know how I was able to. I guess all the reading that I did, right, was able to inspire that. So that's when I knew I was a writer, being able to be that vulnerable with experiences that I hadn't felt in the flesh. That's to me that was dope.
Nice.
Okay, so the story that I'm here to write. This is the first time that I'm actually sharing this in public. I've done. I have an alias, which is Fearless Leon, and I've been on a spiritual path since 2011. I started hosting women's sister circles in 2013. I opened my third eye in 2016, and I'm an Afro-Dominican writer, conguera, marketer. So my creative writing, I spend most of it doing it in marketing. And I've had this idea for years, and this idea of this book comes with a lot of pain. This book is going to be called Urban Polygamies. Marriage is Broken. My healing work as I pulled the psychobehavioral patterns in my family together. Many men in my family had kids on the side. Many men had sex with women, with their own daughters, with family members. My uncle died years after he had sex with two of his daughters. My uncle died from an overdose. This urban polygamy idea comes from the stories and the narratives of the men in my family. The idea that I grew up with the offspring of perhaps African and Muslim and Arabic cultures, and that we've been fed this idea of monogamy through our colonizers, but it's in our DNA and it's in our bloodline to have multiple partners and multiple families.
Breathe.
Yeah. My sisters are 3 weeks apart. In junior high school, I met sisters that were 3 days apart, also Dominican fathers. And these stories of sisters who are weeks apart or months apart, or the woman on the side, is the stories that I grew up to. And I recently had an affair and almost dated a replica of my father. And when I left that affair, I realized that I broke the karmic chain by walking away. And this urban polygamy flight somehow. And that's why I'm here. And my intention for today is because I've been really quiet for the last year. My blog has been dead because I was searching financial stability and, becoming a director in corporate America. And the last 2 jobs that I've searched, they've let me go because of the managers, not because of my performance. So I'm here to return to my roots, the pen, the story, and the fearless lion goddess.
Okay. Before someone takes it, because I want someone to absolutely listen.
Yeah, I have a lot. I'm an empath, so I'm
Listen. But you are safe and you are held. And this story, I can say with a lot of confidence, not that I've read every book in the world, nobody is talking about and no one has written. Not from an Afro-Dominican perspective.
No. And I don't know where the research will begin, but I just feel it. I've seen it, I've lived it, and I'm still healing from it.
Yeah.
You said my name?
Yes, I said your name. Do you know Angie Abreu?
No.
This is a wonderful time to introduce Angie Abreu in the space, which is quietly sitting in a corner. But Angie Abreu is the founder and creator of the Dominican Writers Association, the founder of the Dominican Writers Conference.
I follow.
Angie does incredible work with authors in the diaspora. And so I think Angie's a wonderful resource to just talk about who you can be connecting to, what you should be reading. where to even begin, like that research. This story is massive. So it's good that you talked about the healing element and all of the work that you've been doing from like 2011, 2016, and you date. I love dates, so I appreciate that. Because it took that to get you here. It took you getting fired to get you here to say, you know what, it's time. I have time now to sit and dedicate to this. So everything happens right on time. Who wants to offer some? Yes, behind
I'm
you.
not sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you went to Q's.
I did.
And I went to Lemoyne, so I know you're from Q's. But also I just felt that because my side is more about writing about breaking generational trauma with women, like the stuff that are so what the men caused and how the women passed it down to us. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. They're just, for me, my life has been trash in that regard, but it's also like, because I'm thinking about how the generational trauma has been passed down through women, things that I can't change. Why the hell do I get mad about dumb shit that my mom used to get mad about? But it's because that shit passes down. So I feel that. And yeah, there's a lot to be written about. We need to say these stories because I just feel like we're the only ones that can tell how this has been affected from back. The book Dominicana starts talking about those kind of things, generational traumas. I think our story, I mean, this is the story. So I'm excited that you're talking about that because mood. Same.
So in our workshops, this is what we're going to do. We are building our stories together. We are mirroring off each other. This is how we can build, and we will be having workshops where we bring in actual work and we're reading a chapter, a scene, a series of poems, and to build, because the intention for the 9-week workshop is to at least have 50 pages, and my writers tend to have a lot more because y'all write in here. What you don't do out there, you make it up in here. Believe me when I tell you. So that story, I can't wait. It's fucked up, exciting.
My last 2 jobs, literally, I've been let go because the manager was pushed out, and I was the right hand, and I was pushed out, literally. And I'm like, if this is not a spiritual intervention,
You know it.
for me to struggle, but work on this story, then I don't know what it is.
So there's no excuses now. There's no excuses not to get it done. Ache. I'm going to read some of the love that we're getting. We have 6 people with us on YouTube. And I'm going to start with Tawana. I knew I was a writer when I wrote a poem about my grandmother after she passed away. Juvie, I knew I was a writer when I realized how free I felt when I wrote my words and how overwhelmed I felt when I didn't. D writes, I knew I was a writer when I started sharing my work, when I was going through homelessness and seeing how I inspired others. I knew I was a writer when I was published in Hostos Escriba Journal. And I threw in there my own comment in caps, the Bronx pussy, just in case they didn't hear that. Auntie says, the story I was born to write is about domestic violence, rape, homelessness, poverty, mental health. Juvie writes, the story I was born to write is about the resilience, strength found deep in the souls of those who've struggled due to their social circumstances. T says, I was born to write about depression, how connecting or refusing to connect with spirit can affect your sanity, the effects of emotional rejection and abandonment in the womb and in childhood. Eileen writes, I knew I was a writer from a very young age. I love storytelling and telling my own stories. Dee says, I'm casting off shame around sexuality. Oh, she said she heard that from someone, casting off shame around sexuality, sharing and vulnerability. Marilyn says, I knew I was a writer when my Puerto Rican college professor told me I had to write because I offered a unique perspective in my sociology classes. I've been writing for myself and in my journal. D put in quotes, how my dreams and nightmares lead me to writing. Who was that? Yeah. And someone also write, my intention to give myself permission to speak stood out for me. Eileen, soul liberation. Juvie, I can relate to so much to the struggle between speaking versus writing. Marilyn, finding my voice, that's my intention. How do you know when you find your voice? Ooh. That is such a great question. We are going to talk about that. My intention for today is to center my thoughts by listening, connecting with all of you amazing writers. Eileen, the story I was born to write is that of my own experiences, what I've been through, and those who can connect and relate. Eileen, my intention for today is to learn and grow as a writer. I want to walk away with more knowledge and confidence as a writer. Ache. Eileen, I've heard many people say that you shouldn't be dropping titles like that. Who tells you that you are a writer or not? I don't agree. Juvie, Marilyn, the urban polygamy is real. Tell our stories, girl. Tell our stories. Eileen shared, my husband has lived that. Eileen, shout out to Angie. Marilyn, Angie. And Tawana closes with, wow, so much strength in this space, for sure, for sure. You ready?
Hi, so my name is Viomari Vargas.
Xiomari?
Viomari.
Viomari, thank you.
So my dad put Viola and Maria together in my aunt and my mom's name. So
Like a true Dominican.
at first I did not like it because white teachers Biomari or Biomari, but I love it now. So when I knew I was a writer, honestly that question is kind of weird for me still to this day. I really more consider myself a reader. I just as a kid I used to write, and then my teachers just used to post it on like literary journals since like middle school, elementary school. It was never a big deal to me. And then one day I just kept writing in like my journals and stuff like that. And then I wrote a short story in Spanish. And I like it was just like a little like the Little Red Riding Hood. And then I read it to my mom, and my mom was like, "Tú no escribiste eso. Eso no fuiste tú. Tú no escribiste eso." Because it sounded like a fairy tale, like an actual fairy tale. And I was like, "Oh wow, I tricked her, so it must mean it's good." And that's when I realized like I want to write more things in Spanish. But when it comes to me considering myself a writer, I think I need a lot more development and a lot more. I've never really taken it as serious to say that very I guess with confidence. So and the story I was born to write, I've struggled with that for a while because right now I went through a whole career path stuff through college, and right now I work for the courts, and I did a lot of domestic violence work and trauma and stuff like that. So I've done a couple of workshops on healing and intergenerational trauma, mostly with women, and all the how we cope and all these things, especially being Hispanic, Black, with all these like with slavery and all that stuff that comes with it, and especially being with the Caribbeans that were so mixed and all this weirdness from like our history that like you would think that we should know about, but then our parents know nothing about this. Or like that the whole Trujillo thing had such an effect on religion in itself. Like I just so I don't know, I feel like I was at first it was so much I wanted to write about, but I think what I want to write is about like my father's, like how you said with men being and like having so many different. So my grandfather apparently was a man who would go around in su caballo, de que buscando todita las mujeres.
Apparently that's how
that is. Yeah, so I was like, oh,
I've read those stories.
Yeah, and I recently found this out. I did this 23andMe, and I found that my dad took his mom's last name because he didn't want to represent his dad. So my last name isn't Vargas, technically it's Rosario, but he denied that name. And he has his own farm there. And then my grandfather from my father's side that he did not want to claim also has a farm. And I found my cousin from 23andMe from my dad's side. And then this is when all this history came up and all these women he had and all this stuff. So now, and there was a Santeria background, and he's a Santero, my cousin, and it's all this huge thing that I did not know about. And then my mom is super, super religious Catholic, and then it's like so frowned upon, and she's like this diabolical thing. But I feel like we don't know our history enough to be so ignorant about something that we should know about. All of this is a part of us, or the fact that like the colorism in the Dominican Republic and all these things. And I want to talk about all of that and the farm and the motherland. Like like el que no quiera su patria, no quiera su madre, type of thing, like that. Calle 13 lyric like that. That is what I want to do. Like, and it's hard being like
Your cousin who was on there had a farm, you said?
my mom has a farm and my dad has a farm, and then I own my dad has left us a house in New York. So I want, but it's difficult because you come to this country and then you go to DR and they're like, "No eres dominicana, tú eres
Right.
americana." You come here.
But you gotta push past that.
Yeah.
I've done trips and I've gone to San Miguel days. I've seen drummers in front of the churches. You need to experience the synchronization.
No, yeah,
but like live and direct in VR.
Yeah, of course, but it's a different type of like embrace. And the thing is, when you speak to people that have never been to DR, like my boyfriend has never been to. He went to DR when he was 3. The way he speaks about DR is like, oh, they steal from you. You can't walk around with your cell phone. He has this whole idea. To me, it's such a rich. I was raised there. Like I didn't know English till I was 6. It's a way different way of what I look at it. But I wasn't born there. I was born here. So that whole love for your country, I feel like it goes away once you're here for too long. You don't have. So I want.
Are you reclaiming that? The love from the country?
Yes,
Is that what you're doing?
I want to bring that to writing in Spanish and in English, so the kids that cannot, even if your parents can't afford to bring you back to where they came from because it's expensive, or like you're not documented. I want to like you're from there. We have an actual place we can say we're from. And then I guess my intention for today was that, just to start somewhere with that whole thing. But yeah.
Is it short stories? Is it essays? Is it fiction? Is it memoir?
So I wanted to do a short story, and I was telling my friend like we should start off with this thing called like hood stories, like just hood stories from the projects and like from the actual, like just start off like the ghetto, I guess, like what it means to like grow up here, and then also another like being an immigrant, like just different types of stories from other people, like just because I've
just merging other countries, other nationalities.
Everything, because it's just so many people that I've encountered in the work that I've done that there's too many stories to tell that I just don't feel like a memoir or anything like that would be enough. I feel like getting short stories from a lot of different people.
What's gonna be really important for everyone in this room right now is getting very clear about that ADD is real. Like we have 100 ideas, but we got to pick one to master, to get to completion. That's what someone said in the room, to get to the end. And so the challenge is it one essay for 9 weeks, right? Do you know about the Washington Heights anthology? That submissions just closed, but the founder is in the room?
I sent it, actually.
You sent it?
It was before January 31st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, the 24th. The 4th.
The 24th.
The 24th.
Oh, wait.
Of January.
December 31st. It was December 31st.
But it was
and
an
then got
extension. But you submitted something.
Yeah, about gentrification, my building becoming white.
They were in the workshops over there, those two.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope, because that's a wonderful start. So I think what we would be doing is how I would be serving you as a midwife is we would make a list of everything you want to write. And we would be creating a plan for the things you want to write so that you have a clear path. So I know that I'm writing a memoir, and I know that I want this memoir to have 9 chapters. I mean, I've broken it down so much that I know how many words this book is going to have. Like that's how much I break it down. So we'll talk about it. You do have a lot. Who wants to mirror back what you heard, please? Yes.
I want to say something that came to me as you were talking. And one of the things that I said to myself in trying to tell my story is I wrote down, I have to find my voice. I have to tell my story before I can talk about someone else's story. Because in talking about someone else's story, I'm running away from my story.
Oh, okay. You heard that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, I already got my thing.
You have your essay. You have your piece.
I want to express everyone else's too.
That's so.
I hear a lot of stories.
I also resonate with how you said there's like a duality. Like when you're in DR, it's like, oh, la gringa, even if you speak Spanish. It's like you're the other. And then when you're here, you're not like American because you're the other. So you're really living in a space where you don't have a space. It's like, how much space am I supposed to take up in a land that doesn't claim me? And then you go to the other land and it's like, well, you're not from here. You know, you're not riding the burros up and down and you're not like, you know, farming with us and you're not whatever with us. So you're not from here and you're like visiting here. I also have had that with my family as well. It's just like you're neither here nor there.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You're just
the
in
same
the air.
happened to me. I think every immigrant has the same feeling. And I have been here 3 years from Puerto Rico. When I am here, I don't feel I belong this place. When I am there, I feel strange. But I am clear that I prefer to be there.
Mhm.
And I am clear that I don't want to stay here forever. But you have that feeling of not belonging, and the people there, when I go there, I am like acelerado because here everything's so fast.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
walking over there and she's belong and say, mira, espérame, que yo estoy aquí. So, I have always struggled with that.
Absolutely. It's gonna be
Struggle with la jodida.
it's gonna be very important in the next 9 weeks that we are focused. That's very important to me because that's my job as the teacher. It's like after 9 weeks, we're gonna have something that's tangible that we're gonna be like, yo, we did this shit. Right. And so we're gonna look at that, unpack it, because there is a lot. There are so many stories to be told. Now we're gonna select the one that we feel like confidently we can write the shit out of this. Excellent.
My name is Mayelin Santos.
Madeline?
Mayelin. Yeah. Also feel the whole name thing. Yeah. And also Santos because my mom carried that at the end. I feel like you gave us a prompt, but I already started writing that prompt before you gave it, so it kind of all jumbles. But I don't fucking know. I just love words. I think words and language are all we have. I don't ever remember thinking I must write. I just did it, and then all of a sudden, or one day, maybe in middle school or maybe elementary, when I wrote my first official poem. In middle school, I wrote songs, essays for schools, journals for my crushes, awkward pubescent transitioning. It's just what I did. I knew I was a writer. I just always been. I have been. I am a writer. So there's that. The story I was born to write. Perhaps that's it. I'll back up a little. I recently fell in love with playwriting. It's an affair of sorts, and maybe not so much an affair because I'll be doing it forever. I'm trying to write a musical about my mother's story. The story I was born to write, perhaps that's it. My mother birthed me, and so in a literal sense, I was born to write it. I barely know my mom. That is, I know her character traits and habits, her favorite color and foods. But the inner workings of her spirit, the spirit that led her to leave behind her mother country and come here to start a new life, abandoning her own dreams and desires. My intention for today is playfulness. I came here to play, to imagine, to discover, to nurture the child in me. My intention is to play.
Yes.
I'd like to mirror back regarding your mom leaving her home country because while doing the Washington Heights memoir project, while writing, that came up for me. It's like, I'm living my dream life. Yeah, my mother wasn't able to do that because she had to leave her country at God knows what age. She had me at 19. So she hasn't had her own life. She's been a mother since she's been a teenager. So I can understand and I wonder, because I don't know and I haven't really asked yet, what were her dreams? What did you want to do besides be a mother? You know? So I can feel that.
I sat down with her in an interview and I have this 45-minute clip that I haven't listened back to.
Oh, I can't wait.
So do it. Do it even if it's just for yourself.
Yeah, I think we have a right in my family.
Thank
They're
you.
gonna die.
Thank you. You're up.
Oh, all right. My name. So I'm trying to establish my maiden name as my writer name. So Lisa Maria Gil. And I'm doing that also just because I feel I want to honor my family with that. I took my husband's name, but that's my married name. That's not me. So that's what I'm trying to do. So Lisa Maria Gil. I knew I was a writer when I made my mother buy me a diary with a little key in fourth grade. I've been writing ever since. I still have that diary at home. I knew I was a poet around 7th grade when my friend was just writing poetry in her room while doing homework. And I was like, oh, let me try this. And it was bomb. For seventh graders, I was like, oh, I think I have something here. So I am a poet. My intention for today, I almost didn't make it. I didn't. I kept coming up with excuses. I gotta take care of the boys. We gotta go pick up the laundry. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. So this morning, my husband's like, "What happened?" I was like, "No, I just didn't want to leave you guys for so many hours." He's like, "If it's up to me, I'm not stopping you." So that gave me permission because I feel that being here is kind of selfish because I'm taking myself away from my family. But I also feel that if I don't do this, that I'm not living my authentic self. You know, I'm just going through the motion each and every day. And this is something that I have to do because it's a calling. It's a calling for me. And I knew that. I've known that, and I keep searching for jobs and this and that, and none of them I feel fulfilled. But being here, this feels like home.
Okay.
So that's my intention
Word.
for today, for every day. And the story I want to write, I'm still not sure, but just being here, I kept like crying, and I really don't know why, but I guess it's just because I feel like I'm home. So
You're also being called to open yourself.
I
So
guess
that's
so.
also what you're feeling with that stirring.
Yeah.
That's happening.
Yeah. So the story I was born to write is about the inexplicable love I have for my family, for the ones I love so dearly, for this deep, deep love I have for the special people in my life. And I have a hard time being mushy with people. So I take to writing, or if I want to show you how much I care for you, I write it in a card or write it in a letter, but I cannot tell you to your face.
Oh, can I push you a little bit?
Sure.
The story I was born to write it's a love story. What is the story?
I'm not exactly sure.
Because the story is about the people that you love. What about them? And is it connected? You don't have to answer today. Things to think about, right? So, like, you submitted something to the Washington Heights Project, and you have this in common, the mother thing. I can't wait to get to me when I share mine. Listen, but this idea of where we come from. So what's the love story? So I love what I'm mirroring back is I love the love. This is home because I can relate to that. Like for me, that is very real and very true. But I want to know the story. What is the love story? And can love and pain reside in the same space? That's all. That's all I'm mirroring back.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Yes.
I definitely mirrored and felt the struggle because it's like everything gets in the way, but you want to do it, but everything just gets in the way. It's like even like this morning, I got on the highway and nothing moved. So I'm like, okay, I'm already late. I don't need to go. Then it's like, yes, I need to go anyway. Just go anyway. So I definitely felt that. It's like there's always something, but you just have to do it for you.
I'm so glad you came anyway. I'm so glad you came anyway. Yeah.
My mom writes a lot, but she writes to God or whatever, and it's a different class of writing to me. But I just feel like she stopped herself when my dad and my mom love saying this, but like, oh, when you and your brother were born, because my brother is 12 years older than me, and me and my brother are 2 years apart, or a year and a half. But like she stopped working because of us. Like, he's always bringing this up, because of us, and I don't think that should have never been an excuse to stop working or to stop doing what she loved to do. And what she loved to do was taking care of like people. And my aunt stopped working with kids, and she loved teaching, and now she was a Spanish teacher in the ER, and she stopped to become a mother, which is something that was forced on her by her husband. It's not something that you should ever stop just because a family, that there's things you could do simultaneously. And that's something that I always hate hearing them say, because I know it's something they've always wanted to do. And now they're at an age where they feel like they cannot. So
the other thing I'm feeling about the justifiable excuses that we come up with for the reasons why we can't and shouldn't, and the mother's guilt and the guilt and the not enough and the self-doubt and the like, there's so much shit that we have to release before we even come to the fucking page. Sometimes it's a lot, it's so much. You are not a bad mother because you choose writing. You are not. You are an excellent mother because you choose writing. Because when our parents or when you, I'm trying not to cry. My mother's on my heart every minute of every day. And I think about, I'm sorry, I know for a fact that her dream was not to have 4 babies. She loved us, but I can't believe I know she wasn't like, she wanted to be Tyra Banks on the runway wearing Versace. Sorry. We threw a wrench in all of that. So that's the truth. You're welcome. Oh, so there's some messages on here. They're blowing up the iChat out here. They're complimenting all of the unique names in the space. We have a lot of stories. Marilyn writes, we do have a lot of stories. My story, your story, our story. I like the idea of narrowing it down and making a plan. Marilyn wrote, between 2 islands. Eileen writes, it's an ongoing battle of belonging. Eileen also writes, it's sad you're not Rican enough, not American enough. Dee says, I intake that, creating a plan and working on a project one at a time. Dee's intention for today is focusing on one thing to write about and give it my all before jumping onto the next project. Eileen says, the stuff we put ourselves through as women, love for her authenticity. Eileen also wrote, can love and pain reside in the same place? That's a word. Marilyn wrote, damn, love and pain, story of my life. Eileen, resistance is a motherfucker. Fantastic.
My name is Liana. I just want to say, if you see me shaking, I have a weird biological thing that happens to me right before I go up anywhere. I'm not scared. My body just literally starts going like this. So I'm just going to sit on my hands. And here we go. So if you see me shaking, just ignore it.
Tell me your name.
Liana.
Liana.
So when did I know I was a writer? I knew I was a writer when I was stopped in the hallway of my Catholic all-girls high school by a girl I had never spoken to, asking if I had the next chapter of a story I had written and lent to a friend to read. I didn't expect anyone else to read my words, and by the end of the day, I had at least 10 girls asking me to lend them the next chapter when I had it. It was a profound moment because even though looking back, the story was absolute crap. I mean, I was like 15, like whatever, talking about like I was a hood girl. You were not. It was the first time that I realized that my words matter to other people, or like could reach other people. I didn't realize. I just gave it to my one friend, and then she wanted us right back and like let other people read. And I was really mad. I was like, "What the hell? I just gave it to you." But then by the end of the day, everyone kept coming up to me, and I was like, "Oh, maybe it's not so bad." Like everyone. I mean, obviously, because it was positive, but everyone was like, "Hey, where's the next chapter? Can I have it like by tomorrow? Can you come by my homeroom?" Wow. And I'm like, I didn't realize anyone was gonna read this except my one friend. But that's when I kind of realized that I was a writer, even though I had been writing before. Was when people were coming up to me and being like, "Hey, when can I get the next chapter?" And that was the first time that I like sat back and I was like, "Wow, like people want to read what I have to say." So the story I was born to write. This one is hard because I know that this is what I need to write, but I've never said it out loud like so many people. So I'm just going to say it out loud. I'm going to sit on my hands because I can already feel the shaking. So the story I was born to write is about my upbringing. While the majority was positive, I would like to write about how I dealt with an eating disorder, but was told I was just being stupid by ignorant parents who didn't know any better. How machismo was hammered down on me, but I fought my way through, and I'm still fighting my way through it in a very patriarchal culture, and how I learned to think for myself. For example, I'm vegan, and that is like, I think that's more, I don't even know, the words isn't coming to my head right now, but that's like more shocking, I guess, to people in my life than me like having gone through an eating disorder, or like me having gone through like so many fucked up experiences. I literally was told that I was going to die, like drop dead and die, because I wasn't eating salami and eggs with my mom. So I'm still alive. 18 years strong. Still going strong. So my intention for today is to listen and see how other people's experiences are either similar to mine or can lend another perspective to mine. Just because I've realized that growing up in a very machismo household, I started having like misandry, hatred for men, pretty much is what it is. Even though I'm married, I have a brother, I have a father, I have a husband. I started getting really like raged by anything. Like if a guy would like try to catcall me, like I would explode, and it's my reaction didn't match the action. If that means anything. So I need to like learn to sit back, listen to other people's experiences, realize that the person that I'm overreacting to is someone's son, is someone's father, is someone whatever. And maybe they didn't mean it that way. And it's just that in my head, because all my life I was told like men are the rulers, women, you're subservient, and like you do what I say. I just learned to fight back with rage, with like, no, fuck you, I'm gonna do what I want. And so anything that comes across my way that doesn't match, like you need to let me be rude. I don't know, be like me and be outrageous and be raged. I fight back really aggressively. And so I need to learn to like sit back, relax, listen, and understand. And so I'm hoping for today, my intention is kind of just because I'm so glad that there are guys here, just to listen and learn and realize like my side isn't the only side. So.
Yay.
After I listening to what you said, I have to say that for me it's a challenge because everywhere I go, and my past relationship, I have to struggle to get rid of any machismo, manifestation in my relation. So for me it's a challenge and it's like a goal. No soy perfecto, eso lo digo, ¿verdad? Cuando I have a relationship, yo trato, pero hay veces que. So that's my goal, and I want to reflect that in my writing because there's a lot of guys like me that maybe need somebody to let them know, mira, you have to be conscious how you relate to your partners, and how we cannot go through life, abusando de la gente, de las mujeres, because we are a minority. I mean, people who so believe like me, we are a minority.
Right. I think exactly how he thinks with that when it comes to that. Because in my house, for me, it was I saw what not to do. That machismo thing was so strong that then I looked like a punk or a bitch because yo, what's up? Why don't you get these hoes? And I just like, oh my man, like if they're that easy to get, then they're easy to give up, catch something. Like you guys are just just to get a count, but you guys are not thinking further like long term. So with me, it was always that fight. So that machismo thing, when it comes to you guys and all that, like I resonated with you from A to Z, like even finding your history and why, all that. Like I've thought of going back to DR and recording the eldest aunt in my family who has the history of our entire family. I asked my uncle, who's the oldest one out here in Jersey, but he's like, no, pues tiene que ir a Santo Domingo, hablar con tía Carmen, que ya sabe todo el mundo. So I was like, all right, but I got to record that before she goes because I can pass that on and I can break that what do they call it, that generational
trauma.
Yeah, that I gotta break that.
I have to add something on that.
Yeah. Go.
I am proud. I can proudly say that my daughter and my son, they wrote ellos escriben. They live from escritura. My daughter tiene una página de horóscopo. I just say horoscope.
A horoscope page. Dope.
Called Checking Mela. I don't know if somebody has heard about. She has thousands of followers.
That's
and
fantastic.
she's really, she writes with conscience. Ella es una joven de 21.
That's dope.
And my son is a reggaeton singer in Puerto Rico.
Oh, dope.
Cool. Who is different because his messaging is bien amigo Calle 13, super friend of Calle 13. And the letters of his songs are really conscious. Él escribió algo sobre immigration.
So he's very political like you.
Yeah. Se llama Rafa Pavón Music. Lo pueden conseguir en Instagram.
Dope.
And I feel proud because él escribe sus canciones. He writes his song, so they, por lo menos algo heredaron, ¿verdad?
Y lo de ella, her is what, Instagram?
Instagram se llama Checking Mela. She writes horoscope y es bien famosa. Tiene más
Mela, M-L-A.
M-E-L-A.
Checking Mela.
Because she used to work in a hotel in San Juan in the check-in, and she used to write about the turistas.
Oh, that's great.
Poco a poco, and then she started writing horoscopes. Yeah,
Horoscopes. That's so.
Rafa Pavón.
Rafa Pavón.
Pavón.
¿Qué? Sí, mi mamá era media santera, espiritista y de todo.
That's dope.
Y yo un poquito.
What I really loved was the line that you said about the reaction didn't align
With the action.
with the action, because I can really relate to that. Like what this, yeah, I can relate to it. There's a lot I want to say about that. I want to say about that. But one of the things that I find really interesting about is there's a lot of similarities in the room, right? Like what we're writing about in terms of our culture and our history and our background and what we are paying homage to and what we're looking at and what's really important to us. I am really fascinated by this idea of machismo and how it's passed on through women too, right? Like, and so there is a lot to unpack, you know. And while I love the word misandry, I don't think I've ever heard that word before.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm writing a whole book around that shit like right now. I'm like, what? And so yeah, I'm really curious about what it is that you want to write. Like what is the story? What is it? Did you say?
It was, well, it kind of boils down to, I feel like, mental health in the Dominican household specifically. Like if I really want to like boil it down to the like nitty gritty, it's just how like things are, there's always like secrecy, I want to say, and it's always like it's in the family. No one outside of the family should know what's happening inside. And so like for me, for example, now that I'm in therapy and I can say it out loud, it's that I've learned that because I was being held down by so many things, like generational, like the machismo and just like the whole like gender roles, and like women shouldn't ever be drunk, and like women shouldn't ever have more than 2 sips of beer, and like women shouldn't da 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 da. And so I had to fight through all of that, not only because being a woman, but being an American woman, where things aren't as strict for us here as it is back then. So it's just like literally me clawing through everything. But when it boils down to it, like I had a lot of like control issues. Like I wanted to control myself and my body, because growing up I didn't have that. Like everyone was controlling me for me. And so I like developed an eating disorder, which I like have gone through therapy and like I don't have it anymore, but I had one, and it was because of a sense of control, because I wanted to control myself and like everything about me, having had that stripped away from me. And in a sense of like what the story is, it's mainly that it's that like growing up with these generational like issues, you lose yourself from a very early age, because while yes, parents should parent their children, it's kind of more than that. I feel like in a Hispanic household or in a Latin household, it's more like you need to be like plummeted with, this is how you're going to be, and that's it. Don't think for yourself. Think about how all the times that women have done this before and how they've done it. That's how you're gonna do it, not how you're thinking about doing it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's more like, it's more
like I listen as a midwife, and I'm like, yo, I've also never read the story of a Black or brown girl talking about eating disorders in our culture, where we eat like we are served like men-sized plates of food, come, and if it's crazy. And so I needed to hear you say this. My story is about mental health, and then specifically you talking about eating disorders. I think that's brave and huge. Is it a memoir? Are you writing this story about you, or are you going to fictionalize it and this is a character who experiences this world? What feels more?
I haven't thought of it yet.
You don't have to answer it today.
I haven't thought of it yet. Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm like literally cool.
Because this, for me, like as a facilitator, one of the things I like to do is have my writers write in the third person. Like, even if you're writing memoir, because I feel like there's something liberating and freeing about writing it. This person, she, he, they, however, whatever pronoun you want to use, is having this experience. It's not necessarily my story. There's something that feels really safe about detaching in that way. Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that you have like with the whole eating disorder thing, because when I had this, I took my women's gender studies class, and it was like women in psychology, and we had to learn about eating disorders. And I raised my hand and I was like, this sounds like a white person thing, because I have a completely different story. I've been skinny my whole life, and people have been telling me like even things as rude as like,
tú no puedes embarazarte con un cuerpo así. Like I can't even hold a baby just because I'm this tiny. And then I was a vegetarian from like when I was 13 to like 18 or something like that. And going to family parties, going everywhere, I was super judgy. Me dijeron a mí like, oh, es por eso que you're not gaining weight. So when I went to the doctor, he was like, my pediatrician, he was a family friend and all of that. He was like, oh, if you eat meat, then you'll gain weight. I eat meat, still the same weight. I have been the same weight for like 10 years. It does not change. Like, it's just my body. And it's weird because I've never met someone that was Hispanic or like Black with a real like dealing with that type of. I always saw it as like a white person thing because it's such an opposite thing in our culture. Like you have to be this thick mommy, and I've always been so insecure about my body because of it.
Well, it took me a really long time to even realize I had an issue because of that, because nobody had ever come to me in my family especially and been like, hey, this is kind of weird. Like, I haven't seen you eat since like a week ago. Like, what's happening here? Or like, hey, why are you going to the gym for 4 hours because you ate an apple? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody was telling me that. It was all like, oh, see, yeah, ponte, like, yeah, like, get your body right so that the men will look at you type of thing.
I think that's a prevalent story more so for Dominican women raised and living in DR, because you know how huge, like, the beauty, the gym, all of that. Like, those women have a lot of pressure. You think Dominican
it's not Dominican. It's not just Dominican.
It's Latinas, right?
Women of color.
Right, women of color. But I think that that's those stories, like the women back home, I've seen them more than the ones here go through these, eating disorders and that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
To show up for this idea that we've created as a society.
Yeah.
Here's some feedback.
Uh-oh.
No, it's good. T, my family used to tell me if you don't have meat on the plate, it's not a meal. Marilyn says, sometimes it feels like machismo is sustained by women. Tawana says, to this day, I'm the only person in my family who doesn't have issues with cholesterol or high blood pressure. I am and continue eating in a way that aligns with my constitution. Eileen says, mental health is swept under the rug. Being from a Latino family, I see this. It's been my experience. If you're heavy, you live well. If you're skinny, you're sick. There's never a medium. Individuation is frowned upon. You got a story, yo. You got a story. I knew I was a writer after September 11th, 2001. When the towers crashed, I was living in Miami. And I remember that day was a Tuesday. It was the morning. I was driving to Bacardi. I worked for the Bacardi rum company. I had a good job, making good money. I didn't have to do this artist life, this broke ass life. But I was working for Bacardi and I was driving, and one of my morning rituals was I would be checking in with my sister, my middle sister, Josie, and she would be watching Good Morning America. I'm driving in my traffic and she's sharing the news. And so as I'm driving, she's like, yo, a plane just went into the Twin Towers. I'm like, get out of here. And I'm thinking, oh shit, the pilot, maybe the pilot had a seizure or a heart attack. Like, oh my God, that's horrible. And I'm driving. We're still talking. And she's just like telling me everything in real time. And she's like, yo, a second plane hit the tower. I said, oh, we're fucking under attack. I said, it's war. I said, we're gonna die. I got to Bacardi and everyone knew the news already, and we were all in a conference room. I said, if one more thing happens, I'm fucking out. I'm go because I had my daughter was 9 at the time. I'm like, no, she was younger. Yeah, no, she was 9. So I said, if one more thing happens, I'm out. One more thing happened. Was it Virginia? What was the second, the third plane? Pentagon, and then Pennsylvania, and then no, but it was also Virginia because it hit the what's our place? Not the CIA. It hit the Pentagon, right?
Yeah, the Pentagon's in Virginia.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm out. I left. I headed home, and I was with my family, and like we all did, it was on like repeat. Like that devastation was on repeat, 24 hours that day. And we were all a mess. And I remember, this is like September 11th. I'm thinking, wow, what if I was in those towers? What if I had died just like that? What significant thing have I left behind? How will I be remembered? How will my daughter remember me? What stories would she be told about me? Because, you know, people love to talk shit about you when you ain't here. Because they never say anything good. That's not true. There are some good people out there. So I decided that I wanted to write her a memoir, de la nada. Like, it was like September 11th happened. I said, I'm writing her a memoir because I want her to know my dirt. If anyone's going to tell who I slept with, what I did, how I felt, it's going to be me. And I had no idea how to write a memoir, how to begin to write a memoir, where to go to write a memoir. I just knew I was writing her this book. I wasn't going to publish it. It wasn't for anyone but her. I just start writing, and I start in 1971. No, I go back 1968. You know, I talk about my parents' love story, and I just go from DR to Brooklyn to, I just start writing. That's September 11th. October 3rd, 2001. This is like literally 2 weeks later. I'm sitting in bed and I'm reading a book called Writing from Personal Experience. And the author is talking about how everything in your life is a story. Everything is material. Like, everyone has a story. And I was feeling so affirmed in the prompts, and I was just like, oh shit, I'm a writer. And I looked over to my daughter who was in bed with me, and I was like, I'm a writer. She's like, I know, mommy. I'm like, no, I'm a writer. She's like, I know you're writing me. But like, she knew I was writing a book, but like in her mind, she was like, Mama's a writer. And I'm like, no, I'm a writer. And she's like, I know, mommy, and you're going to buy me a house with a McDonald's and a Carvel on it. I'm like, yo, man. What that advance look like? Exactly. That zero advance. And she just smiled, and I sat there, and it was the moment that it was my aha moment. It was my revelation that I was here to tell stories. I was here to write stories. And so since that moment, I have been writing consistently. And so that was the moment I knew. The story I am born to write is all the stories. All the stories, but specifically, I am writing for women, about powerful women. Not that I'm not writing about men, because men are important for me. Women, in my fantasy world, I live on an island with just women. But the truth of the matter is that the story that I'm writing right now is called I Don't Give a Fuck. It's dissecting 3 generations of rage. And I'm looking at the root of rage and how it has played out in my family. So like toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, but going back, looking at what experiences trigger the rage, how we inherited it from our colonizers. So someone was talking about like all of our roots, right? Like Muslim and Indian and la 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 la, right? Like, when I think about, I'm going as far back as my paternal grandmother, who was a single mother who was left by my grandfather, who married a younger woman, had 10 kids with that other woman, and put them all through college. And my grandmother was the one struggling raising the 5 children she was left with. She had a lot to be mad about. Mm-hmm. Yes, she was mean. Yes, she was angry. She also lived through the Parsley Massacre. She also lived through 2 invasions, 2 occupations of the U.S. and DR. She also lived through Trujillo. O sea, she had shit to be mad about. And so I'm writing about rage, and I'm giving myself permission to be angry on the page and hate who needs to be hated. But the truth is that this story is in honor of my brother who died from cancer a year ago. Because he died, I believe, that anger killed him. That rage gave him cancer. And that's how I'm writing it. That's the story. And my intention for today is to have fun, to get to know amazing writers and hear what's on their heart. My intention is to hold space that is encouraging, non-judgmental, honest, and safe. All right. Yes.
Sorry, I know I have a lot of comments, but
Yeah.
you know, when it comes to machismo and stuff, I had this a lot of growing up. My dad and my brothers are like very, very machistas, well, not the one that's closest to my age, but I wasn't allowed to pierce my ears till I was 13. I wasn't allowed, like I had to wear long skirts. Like my dad is a 7-day Adventist. Some weird, I don't know. I don't follow that. But growing up, I was so angry at men and all that stuff, to the point where I don't even want to get married. From when I was 12, I didn't want to do that. But then now that I'm in a different field where I studied women's gender studies and all that stuff, and now I think I focus so much on being a woman and the fact that how much hurt we went through as just in general. And then I started thinking, like, my dad did not take his father's name for a reason. He was hurt. And my brothers, when they want to cry, you can see it in their eyes, but they get angry or they'll walk away. And I know they're hurting, but they hurt in so many different ways that it's not as showing as a female, like, emotions. It's so deep that it's like it's even almost mysterious. The way that they can, yeah, and that's it's not even, and they do have these weird expressions of emotions, and it's like you need to be emotionally intelligent and understand where's that anger coming from and why you're sad and all of that. And those men being able to tell those stories are extremely important.
So important to give themselves permission to be vulnerable, to cry, because men of color have not been raised to do that.
No.
My brother-in-law sent us a beautiful picture yesterday of my nephew who was breastfeeding. My baby sister had a baby, her third baby. And the little boy was breastfeeding the baby. And the way he was looking at the baby with all this love was like, oh my God. Imagine if he took a belt out and said, boys don't do that, and boys don't play with dolls, and that trauma would undo all of that. And like allowing him to be vulnerable and say, I can love on this baby, because that's all he was doing. I want to love on this baby. I want to feed this baby and nurture this baby and give it nourishment. But unfortunately, our men have been conditioned a certain way, and that's going to take work to undo, and a lot of love and a lot of patience and a lot of compassion, right, and understanding, which is why I need to write the story I'm writing.
I want to say that maybe I have a more optimistic view of the future. Hanging out in Puerto Rico with the younger generation of friends of my son and my daughter, and how they relate in couples, y cómo ellos están redefining how the sexuality, machismo, how they breaking away from the tradition. So I will be careful repeating the same narrative of what we had before, because las cosas están cambiando.
Absolutely.
Even with a lot of things. So I have hope in a generación nueva. I don't know.
Yes. So, writing from the womb. This is the structure. This is exactly what it looks like. We open up with rituals. We go around the room and mirror. We also read a piece of writing, whether it's an essay, whether it's prose, very closely, and we come back and we share and we discuss and we talk about it. We write in session. And so let's read. Did anyone, if you didn't have a chance to read what I sent, that's okay. I sent it this morning. Our baby is in the hospital. She's been in the hospital for 3 days. So it was like, this morning was the only time I could get to it. We're going to read. I'm going to let you decide. Let's take a vote. We're either reading Octavia Butler together, or we're reading the Love of My Life piece. 2 write prompts in the interest of time. How many vote for The Love of My Life by Cheryl Strayed? Raise your hand. Oh, shit.
I mean, I read it, but the other one was really, I couldn't finish the other one, but it seemed really interesting.
Octavia's?
Yes.
How many people want to read Octavia Butler?
What's the title?
Octavia Butler, it's Positive Obsession. It's from Bloodchild and Other Stories.
I mean, did everyone read it? 'Cause maybe
We're going to read it together, so.
It's kind of hard to go.
Yeah.
the Love of My Life sounds like very fluffy, but it's not.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of info. So the Cheryl Strayed piece is personal narrative, and it's a personal essay. And so she gets into, what's really good about it is how she writes about trauma and where she takes you on the journey and allows you into her world. In Positive Obsession, this is Octavia Butler's journey. It's her story of being a writer. So it's really about what you need today, because we're going to write on either one. So do we want craft or do we want to get into like the personal?
Yeah.
Raise your hand for craft. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then getting into the nitty gritty of emotion. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Damn. So I'm breaking the tie. We're reading Cheryl Strayed.
Okay.
Let's read Cheryl Strayed. We'll read Octavia. And you have Octavia Butler. So let me have them pull it up here. Can we? Oh, it's right there. So what do I need to do? No, the other one. Do I scroll with something? We're reading it out loud.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I can just go along with
You sure?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Everyone take a paragraph. Everyone takes a paragraph. Someone read the title. The Love of My Life by Cheryl Strayed. And who wants to go?
I go.
So you'll go?
Yeah.
We'll come this way around. Go.
The first time I cheated on my husband, my mother had been dead for exactly 1 week. I was in a cafe in Minneapolis watching a man. He watched me back. He was slightly pudgy, with jet black hair and skin so white. Sorry, I lost it. And skin so white, it looked as if he powdered it. He stood and walked to my table and sat down without asking. He wanted to know if I had a cat. I folded my hands on the table, steadying myself. I was shaking, nervous of what I would do. I was raw, fragile, vicious with grief. I would do anything. Yes, I said. I thought so, he said slowly. He didn't take his eyes off me. I rolled the rings around my fingers. I was wearing 2 wedding bands, my own and my mother's. I'd taken hers off her hand after she died. It was nothing fancy, sterling silver, thick and braided.
Edgar.
Should I?
Edgar.
Yeah, go ahead.
You look like the kind of girl who has a cat. How's that? I asked. He didn't answer. He just kept looking at me steadily as if he knew everything about me, as if he owned me. I felt distinctly that he might be a murderer. Are you mature? He asked intently. I didn't know what he meant. I still don't. I told him that I was. Well, then prove it and walk down the street with me.
Me?
Go ahead.
Oh. We left the cafe, his hand on my arm. I had monstrous bruises on my knees from how I'd fallen on them after I walked into my mother's hospital room and first saw her dead. He liked these. He said he'd been admiring them from across the room. They were what had drawn him to me. Also, he liked my boots. He thought I looked intriguing. He thought I looked mature. I was 22. He was older, possibly 30. I didn't ask him his name. He didn't ask mine. I walked with him to a parking lot behind the building. He stopped and pressed me against a brick wall and kissed me. But then he wasn't kissing me. He was biting me. He bit my lips so hard I screamed.
You lying cunt, he whispered into my ear. You're not mature. He flung me away from him and left. I stood unmoving, stunned. The inside of my mouth began to bleed softly. Tears filled my eyes. I want my mother, I thought. My mother is dead. I thought this every hour of every day for a very long time. I want my mother. My mother is dead. It was only a kiss, and barely that, but it was, anyway, a crossing. When I was a child, I witnessed a leaf unfurl in a single motion. 1 second, it was a fist. The next, an open hand. I never forgot it, seeing so much happen so fast. And this was like that. The end of one thing, the beginning of another. My life as a slut.
Be taking notes, like in your journal, like if there's a line you like as we're reading, because at the end we're going to talk about it. When my mother was diagnosed with cancer, my husband Mark and I took an unspoken sexual hiatus. When she died 7 weeks later, I couldn't bear for Mark to touch me. His hands on my body made me weep. He went down on me in the gentlest of ways. He didn't expect anything in return. He didn't make me feel that I had to come. I would soak in a hot bath and he would lean into it to touch me. He wanted to make me feel good, better. He loved me and he had loved my mother. Mark and I were an insanely young, insanely happy, insanely in love married couple. He wanted to help. No, 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 I said, but then sometimes I relented. I closed my eyes and tried to relax. I breathed deep and attempted to fake it. I rolled over on my stomach so I wouldn't have to look at him. He fucked me and I sobbed uncontrollably.
Keep going, I said to him, just finish, but he wouldn't, he couldn't. He loved me, which was mysteriously, unfortunately, precisely the problem. I wanted my mother. We aren't supposed to want our mothers that way, with the pinning intensity of sexual love, but I did, and I couldn't have her. I couldn't have anything. Most of all, I couldn't have pleasure, not even for a moment. I was bereft, in agony, destroyed over her death. To experience sexual joy, it seemed would have been to negate that reality, and more would have been to betray my mother, to be disloyal to the person that she had been to me. My hero, a single mother, after she bravely left an unhealthy relationship with my father when I was 5. She remarried when I was 11. My stepfather had loved her and had been a good husband to her for 10 years, but shortly after she died, he fallen in love with someone else. His new girlfriend and her 2 daughters moved into my mother's house, took her photos off the wall, erased her. I needed my stepfather to be the kind of man who would suffer for my mother, unable to go on, who would carry a torch, and if he wouldn't do it, I would.
We are not allowed this. We are allowed to be deeply into basketball or Buddhism or Star Trek or jazz, but we are not allowed to be deeply sad. Grief is a thing that we are encouraged to let go of, to move on from, and we are told specifically how this should be done. Countless well-intentioned friends, distant family members, hospital workers, and strangers I met at parties recited the famous 5 stages of grief to me: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I was alarmed by how many people knew them, how deeply the single definition of the grieving process had permeated our cultural consciousness. Not only was I supposed to feel these 5 things, I was meant to feel them in that order and for a prescribed amount of time.
I did not deny. I did not get angry. I didn't bargain, become depressed, or accept. I fucked. I sucked. Not my husband, but people I hardly knew. And in that, I found a glimmer of relief. The people I messed around with did not have names. They had titles. The permanently graying wilderness guy.
Prematurely.
The prematurely graying wilderness guy. The technically still a virgin Mexican teenager. The formerly gay organic farmer. The quietly diverse poet. The failing but still trying massage therapist. The terribly large Texas bull rider. The recently unemployed graduate of Juilliard. The actually pretty famous drummer guy. Most of these people were men. Some were women. With them, I was not in mourning. I wasn't even me. I was happy and sexy and impetuous and fun. I was wild and enigmatic and terrifically good in bed. I didn't care about them or have orgasms. I didn't have heart-to-heart talks. I asked them questions about their lives and they told me everything and asked a few questions in return. They knew nothing about me. Because of this, most of them believed they were falling instantly, madly in love with me.
I did what I did with these people, and then I returned home to Mark, weakly, weakness, and wet, blurry-eyed and elated. I am alive. I saw in the giddy post-sex days. My mother's death has taught me live each day as if it were my last. I say to myself, latching onto the nearest cliche and the one last truth. I didn't stop to sing. What if I had been my last day? Did I wish to be sucking the cock of an actually pretty famous drummer guy? I didn't sing to ask that because I didn't want to sing. I did sing. I saw. I cannot continue to live without my mother.
Are you reading with us, Angie?
No.
Okay.
I lied. Sometimes to the people I messed around with, some of them, if they'd known I was married, would not have wanted to mess around with me. But mostly to Mark. I was not proud of myself. I was in love with him and wanted to be faithful to him and wanted to have sex with him. But something in me wouldn't let me do it. We got into the habit of fucking in the middle of the night, both of us waking from a sound sleep to the reality of our bodies wet and hard and in the act. The sex lasted about 30 seconds and we would almost always both come. It was intensely hot and strange and surreal and darkly funny and ultimately depressing. We never knew who started it. Neither of us recalled waking, reaching for each other. It was a shot of passion and we held on to it. For a while, it got us through.
We like to say how things are, perhaps how we hope that's how we might actually be. We attempt to name, identify, and define the most mysterious matters: sex, love, marriage, monogamy, infidelity, death, loss, grief. We want these things to have an order and an internal logic. We also want them to be connected to one another. We want it to be true. If you cheat on our spouse, it means we no longer want to be married to him or her. We want it to be true that if someone we love dies, we simply have to pass through a series of phases, like an emotional obstacle course, from which we will emerge happy and content, unharmed and unchanged.
After my mother died, everyone I knew wanted to tell me either about the worst breakup they would had or the people they would know who would die. I listened to a long, traumatic story about a girlfriend who suddenly moved to Ohio, and to stories of grandfathers and old friends and people who lived down the block who were no longer among us. Rarely was this helpful. Occasionally, I came across people who would have the experience of losing someone whose death made them think, I cannot continue to live. I recognized these people, whose postures, where they rested their eyes as they spoke, the expressions they led onto their faces, and the ones they kept off. These people consoled me beyond measure. I felt profoundly connected to them as if we were a tribe.
It's surprising how relatively few of them were there. People don't die anymore, not the way they used to. Children survive childhood. Women, the labors of birth. Men, their work. We survive influenza and infection, cancer and heart attacks. We keep living on and on. 80, 90, 103. We live younger too. Frightfully premature babies are cloistered and coddled and shepherded through. My mother lived to the age of 45 and never lost anyone who was truly beloved to her. Of course, she knew many people who died, but none who made her wake to the thought, I cannot continue to live. And there is a difference. Dying is not your girlfriend moving to Ohio. Grief is not the day after your neighbor's funeral when you felt extremely blue. It is impolite to make this distinction. We act as if all losses are equal. It is un-American to behave otherwise. We live in a democracy of sorrow. Every emotion felt is validated and judged to be true as any other.
Did you read?
Did I read?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you read, Jazz?
No.
Who hasn't read in this corner? Did we skip people? Were you in the bathroom?
I think we just jumped.
I think
We jumped. I'm sorry,
Should we go
go.
next?
Yes.
But what does this do to us? This refusal to quantify love, loss, grief. Jewish tradition states that one is considered a mourner when one of 8 people dies: father, mother, sister, brother, husband, wife, son, or daughter. This definition doesn't fulfill the needs of today's diverse and far-flung affections. Indeed, it probably never did. It leaves out the step relations, the long-term lovers, the chosen family of a tight circle of friends, and it includes the blood relations we perhaps never honestly loved. But its intentions are true, and undeniably, for most of us, that list of 8 does come awfully close. We love and care for oodles of people, but only a few of them, if they died, would make us believe we could not continue to live. Imagine if there were a boat upon which you could put only 4 people, and everyone else, known and beloved to you, would then cease to exist. Who would you put on that boat? It would be painful, but how quickly you will decide. You and you and you and you and you get in. The rest of you, goodbye.
Read it. Read the next one. Jazz, finish it.
For years, I was haunted by the idea of this imaginary boat of life, by the desire to exchange my mother's fate for one of the many living people I knew. I would be sitting across the table from a dear friend. I loved her, him, each one of these people. Some said I loved like family, but I would look at them and think, why couldn't it have been you who died instead? You. Goodbye.
We'll come back this way. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. We have a laptop here now. Do you mind if we just do a quick switch? Because if anybody comes to the counter to buy a book, our computers
Oh,
being used for the projector.
okay.
But so it's just a quick switch.
Okay, cool. Do people have it on their phone or in front of them? Like if, because that might even be easier, like if you have access to it. I'm gonna keep reading. We are not allowed this. We are allowed to be deeply into basketball or Buddhism or Star Trek or jazz, but we are not allowed to be deeply sad. Grief is a thing that we are encouraged to let go of, to move on from, and we are told specifically how this should be done. I didn't often sleep with Mark, but I slept beside him or tried to. I dreamed incessantly about my mother. There was a theme. 2 or 3 times a week, she made me kill her. She commanded me to do it, and I sobbed and got down on my knees, begging her not to make me, but she would not relent. In each dream, like a good daughter, I ultimately complied. I tied her to a tree in our front yard, poured gasoline over her head, and lit her on fire. I made her run down the dirt road that passed by the house where I'd grown up, and I ran her over with my truck. I dragged her body, caught on a jagged piece of metal underneath until it came loose, and then I put my truck in reverse and ran her over again. I took a miniature baseball bat and beat her to death with it. I forced her into a hole I dug and kicked dirt and stones on top of her and buried her alive. These dreams were not surreal. They took place in the plain light of day. They were the documentary films of my subconscious and felt as real to me as life. My truck was really my truck. Our front yard was our actual front yard. The miniature baseball bat sat in our closet among the umbrellas. I didn't wake from these dreams crying. I woke shrieking. Mark grabbed me and held me. He wetted a washcloth with cool water and put it over my face. These dreams went on for months, years, and I couldn't shake them. I also couldn't shake my infidelities. I couldn't shake my grief. Are we up?
Yes.
Yeah.
What was there to do with me? What did those around me do? They did what I would have done, what we all do when faced with the prospect of someone else's sorrow. They tried to talk me out of it, neutralize it, tamp it down, make it relative and therefore not so bad. We narrate our lesser stories of loss in an attempt to demonstrate that the sufferer is not really so alone. We make grossly inexact comparisons and hope that they will do. In short, we insist on ignoring the precise nature of deep loss because there is nothing we can do to change it. And by doing so, we strip it of its meaning, its weight, its own fiercely original power. Nobody knew about my sexual escapades. I kept waiting for them to cure me, or for something to cure me of them. 2 years had passed since my mother's death, and I still couldn't live without her. But I also couldn't live with myself.
Can you continue here?
I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it in front of you? Oh.
They got
Who
it.
has
Oh,
it?
he got it up.
We have it. Oh, you have it up?
Let them know where it's.
Where there?
Yep.
Edgar, you don't have the link?
Right there.
It says, "Oops, sorry, it didn't work" or whatever.
Refresh the page, because you got the same error, and we refresh and you should.
But thank you.
The first person I knew who died was a casual friend of my mother's named Barb. Barb was in her early 30s and I was 10. Her hair was brown and shoulder length. Her skin clear and smooth as a bar of soap. She had the kind of tall body that made you acutely aware of the presence of its bones. A long, knobby nose, wide, thin hips, a jaw too pointed to be considered beautiful. Barb got into her car and started the engine. Her car was parked in the garage and all the doors were closed, and she had stuffed a Minnesota Vikings cap into the exhaust pipe. My mother explained this to me in detail. The Vikings hat, the sitting in the car with the garage door closed on purpose. I was more curious than sad. But in the months that followed, I thought of Barb often. I came to care for her. I nurtured an inflated sense of my connection to her.
Recently, another acquaintance of mine died. He was beautiful and young and free-spirited and one hell of a painter. He went hiking one day on the Oregon coast and was never seen again. Over the course of my life, I have known other people who've died. Some of them have died the way we hoped they would, old, content at their time. Others the way we hoped they wouldn't, by murder or suicide, and accidents or too young of illnesses. The deaths of those people made me sad, afraid, and angry. They made me question the fairness of the world, the existence of God, and the nature of my own existence. But they did not make me suffer. They did not make me think I cannot continue to live. In fact, in their deaths, I felt more deeply connected to them, not because I grieved them, but because I wanted to attach myself to what is interesting. It is interesting to be in a Chinese restaurant and see a poster of the smiling face of an acquaintance who is one hell of a painter, plastered on the front door. It is interesting to be able to say, I know him, to feel a part of something important and awful and big. The more connections like this we have, the more interesting we are.
There was nothing interesting to me about my mother's death. I did not want to attach myself to it. It was her life that I clung to, her very, very interesting life. When she died, she was about to graduate from college, and so was I. We had started together. Her college was in Duluth, mine in Minneapolis. After a lifetime of struggle and sacrifice, my mother was coming into her own. She wanted to major in 6 subjects, but the school wouldn't let her, so she settled on 2. My mother had become pregnant when she was 19 and immediately married my father, a steel worker in Western Pennsylvania, when the steel plants were shutting down. A coal miner's son born about the time that the coal was running out. After 3 children and 9 years of misery, my mother left him. My father had recently moved us to a small town near Minneapolis in pursuit of a job prospect. When they divorced, he went back to Pennsylvania, but my mother stayed. She worked as a waitress and in a factory that made small plastic containers that would eventually hold toxic liquids. We lived in apartment complexes full of single mothers whose children sat on the edges of grocery store parking lots. We received free government cheese and powdered milk, food stamps, and welfare checks.
You ready? Oh, can we scroll it?
There,
After a few years, my mother met my stepfather, and when he fell off the roof on the job and hurt his back, they took the $12,000 settlement and spent every penny on 40 acres of land in northern Minnesota. There was no house. No one had ever had a house on this land. My stepfather built a 1-room tar paper shack, and we lived in it while he and my mother built us a house from scrap woods and trees they cut down with the help of my brother, my sister, and me. We moved into the new house on Halloween night. We didn't have electricity or running water or a phone or an indoor toilet. Years passed and my mother was happy, happier than she'd ever been, but still she hungered for more. Just before she died, she was thinking about becoming a costume designer or a professor of history. She was profoundly interested in the American pioneers, the consciousness of animals, and the murderers of women believed to be witches. She was looking into graduate school, though she feared that she was too old. She couldn't believe, really, that she was even getting a degree. I had to convince her to go to college. She'd always read books, but thought that she was basically stupid. To prepare, she shadowed me during my senior year of high school, doing all the homework that I was assigned. She photocopied my assignment sheets, wrote the papers I had to write, read the books. I graded her work using my teacher's marks as a guide. My mother was a shaky student at best. She went to college and earned straight A's.
She died on Monday during spring break of our senior year. After her funeral, I immediately went back to school because she had begged me to do so. It was the beginning of a new quarter. In most of my classes, we were asked to introduce ourselves and say that we had done. I'd say what we had done over the break. My name is Cheryl. I said I went to Mexico. I lied, not to protect myself, but because it would have been rude not to. To express loss on the level, expressing loss on this level is to cross a boundary, to violate personal space, to impose emotion in a non-emotional place.
Keep going.
We cannot always treat grief this way. Nearly every culture has a history, and some still have a practice of mourning rituals, many of which involve changes in the dress or appearance of those in grief. The wearing of black clothing and mourning, jewelry, hair cutting, and body sacrification or ritual tattooing all made the grief-stricken immediately visible to people around them. Although it is true that these practices were sometimes ridiculously restrictive and not always in the best of interests of the mourner, it is also true that they gave us something of value. They imposed evidence of loss on a community and forced the community to acknowledge it. If, as a culture, we don't bear witness to grief, the burden of loss is placed entirely upon the bereaved, while the rest of us avert our eyes and wait for those in mourning is to stop to stop being sad, to let go, to move on, to cheer up. And if they don't, if they have loved too deeply, if they do wake each morning thinking, I cannot continue to live, well, then we pathologize their pain. We call their suffering a disease. We do not help them. We tell them that they need to get help.
Thank you.
Nobody knew about my sexual escapades. I kept waiting for them to cure me or for something to cure me of them. 2 years had passed since my mother's death, and I still couldn't live without her, but I also couldn't live with myself. I decided to tell Mark the truth. The list was long. I practiced what I would say, trying to say it in the least painful way. It was impossible. It was time. Mark sat in the living room playing his guitar. He was working as an organizer for a nonprofit environmental agency, but his real ambition was to be a musician. He had just formed his first band and was writing a new song, finding it as he went along. I told him that I had something to tell him and that it was not going to be easy. He stopped playing and looked at me, but he kept his hand on the guitar, holding it gently. This man whom I loved for years, had loved enough to marry, who had been with me through my mother's death and the aftermath, who'd offered to go down on me in the gentlest way, who would do anything for me, listened as I told him about the technically still a virgin Mexican teenager, the prematurely graying wilderness guy, the recently unemployed graduate of Juilliard. He fell straight forward out of his chair onto his knees and then face down onto the floor. His guitar went with him, and it made a clanging, strumming, hollow sound as it went. I attempted to rub his back. He screamed for me to get my hand off of him. Later, he calmly told me that he wanted to kill me. He promised he would if I'd given him aid.
Women are used to the bad behavior of men, but I had broken the rules. Even among our group of alternative, left-wing, hippie, punk rock artists, politicos, I was viewed by many as the worst kind of woman, the whore, the slut, the adulteress, the liar, the cheat. And to talk with all of, I have wronged the best man. Mark had been faithful to me all along. He moved out and rented a room in the attic of a house. Slowly, we told our friends. The insanely cute, insanely happy, insanely in-love married couple was coming apart. First, they were in disbelief. Next, they were mad. Several of them were not at us, but at me. One of my dearest friends took the photograph of me and she kept it in a frame in her bedroom, ripped it in half and mailed it to me. Another made out with Mark. When I was hurt and jealous about this, I was told that perhaps it was exactly what I needed, a taste of my own medicine. I couldn't rightfully disagree, but still my heart was broken. I lay alone in our bed, feeling myself almost levitate from the pain.
Next.
We couldn't decide whether to get divorced or not. We went to a marriage counselor and tried to work it out. Months later, we stopped the counseling and put the decision on hold. Mark began to date. He dated one of those women who, instead of a purse, carry a teeny weeny backpack. He dated a biologist who also happened to be a model. He dated a woman I'd met once. We'd made an enormous pot of very good chili, of which I'd eaten 2 bowls. His sex life temporarily cured me of mine. I didn't fuck anyone. And I got crabs from a pair of used jeans I bought at a thrift store. I spent several days eradicating the translucent bugs from my person and my apartment. Then, the teeny weeny backpack woman started to play tambourine in Mark's budding band. I couldn't take it anymore. I went to visit a friend in Portland and decided to stay. I met a man, a punk rocker soon to be hopelessly held under the thumb of heroin. I found him remotely enchanting. I found heroin more enchanting. Quickly, without intending to, I slipped into a habit. Here, I thought, at last.
By now, Mark pretty much hated me, but he showed up in Portland anyway and dragged me back home. He set a futon down for me in the corner of his room and let me stay until I could find a job in an apartment. At night, we lay in our separate beds fighting about why we loved and hated each other so much. We made love once. He was cheating on someone for the first time. He was back with the biologist who also happened to be a model, and he was cheating on her with his own life. We thought, what's this? But it was not to be. I was sorry. He was sorry. I wasn't getting my period. I was really, really, really sorry. He was really, really, really mad. I was pregnant by the punk rocker soon to be hopelessly held under the thumb of heroin. We were at the end of the line. We loved each other, but love was not enough. We had become the insanely young, insanely sad, insanely messed up married couple. He wanted me gone. He pulled the blankets from my futon in his room and flung them down the stairs.
I sat for 5 hours in the office of an extremely overbooked abortion doctor waiting for my abortion. The temperature in the room was somewhere around 56 degrees. It was packed with microscopically pregnant women who were starving because we had been ordered not to eat since the night before. The assistants of the extremely overbooked abortion doctor did not want to clean up any puke. At last, I was brought into a room. I was told to undress and hold a paper sheet around myself. I was given a plastic breast and instructed to palpate it, searching for a lump of cancer hidden within its depth. While I waited for my abortion, I waited naked, palpating, finding the cancer over and over again. The extremely overbooked abortion doctor needed to take an emergency long distance on full call. An hour went by. Finally, she came in.
Jasmine.
Me?
Yeah.
I lay back on the table and stared at a poster on the ceiling of a Victorian mansion that was actually composed of miniature photographs of the faces of 100 famous and important women in history. I was told to lie still and peacefully for a while, and then to stand up very quickly and put my underwear on while an assistant of the extremely overbooked abortion doctor held me up. I was told not to have sex for a very long time. The procedure cost me $400, half of which I was ridiculously hoping to receive from the punk rocker soon to be hopelessly held under the thumb of heroin. I went home to my new apartment. The light on my answering machine said I had 3 messages. I lay on my couch, ill and weak and bleeding, and listened to them. There was a message from the punk rocker soon to be hopelessly held under the thumb of heroin, only he didn't say anything. Instead, he played a recording of a Radiohead song that went, "You're so fucking special. I wish I was special, but I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo." That's a good song.
Yeah, it is.
And there was a message that consisted of a 30-second dial tone because the person had hung up. There was a message from Mark wondering where I was.
How I was.
How I was.
I'm coming this way. Oh, it's okay.
My mother had been dead for 3 years. I was 25. I had intended by this point in my life to have a title of my own, the incredibly talented and extraordinarily brilliant and successful writer. I had planned to be the kind of woman whose miniature photograph face was placed artfully into a poster of a Victorian mansion that future generations of women would concentrate on while their cervixes were forcefully dilated by the tip of a plastic tube about the size of a drinking straw, and the beginnings of babies were sucked out of them. I wasn't anywhere close. I was a pile of shit. Despite my mother's hopes, I had not graduated from college. I had pushed my way numbly through that last quarter, but I did not, in the end, receive my bachelor's degree because I had neglected to do one assignment: write a 5-page paper about a story called The Nose by Nikolai Godot. It's a rollicking tale about a man who wakes up one morning and realizes that his nose is gone. Indeed, his nose had not only left him, but had also dressed in the man's clothes, taking his carriage and gone gadding about town. The man does what anyone would do if he woke up and found that his nose was gone. He goes out to find it. I thought the story was preposterous and incomprehensible. Your nose does not just up and leave you. I was told not to focus on the unreality of it. I was told that the story was actually about vanity, pretentiousness, and opportunism in 19th century Russia. Alternately, I could interpret it as a commentary upon either male sexual impotence. ¿Cómo se dice eso?
Impotency.
Impotency or divine immaculate conception. I tried dutifully to pick one of these concepts and write about it, but I couldn't do it, and I could not discuss with my professor why this was so. In my myopic, brief adult stage, the story seems to me to be about something else entirely. A man who woke up one morning and no longer had a nose and then went looking for it. There was no subtext to me. It was simply a story about what it was about, which is to say the absorbed and arbitrary nature of disappearance, our hungry ache to resurrect what we've lost, and the bold truth that the impossible can become possible faster than anyone dreams. Should I continue?
All the time I've been thinking, I cannot continue to live. I'd also had the opposite thought, which was by far the more unbearable, that I would continue to live, and that every day for the rest of my life I would have to live without my mother. Sometimes I forgot this, like a trick of the brain, a primitive survival mechanism. Somewhere, floating on the surface of my subconscious, I still believe, that if I endured without her for 1 year, or 5 years, or 10 years, or 20, she would be given back to me. That her absence was a ruse, a darkly comic literary device, a terrible and surreal dream.
Keep going.
Trees, Duncan Green. Okay. What does it mean to heal? To move on, to let go? Whatever it means, it is usually said and not done, and the people who talk about it the most have almost never had to do it. I cannot say anything about healing, but I can say that something happened as I lay on the couch bleeding and listening to my answering machine play the Radiohead song, and then the dial tone, and then Mark's voice wondering who I was. I thought about writing the 5-page paper about the story of the man who lost his nose. I thought about calling Mark and asking him to marry me again. I thought about becoming the incredibly talented and extraordinarily brilliant and successful writer. I thought about taking a very long walk. I decided to do all of these things immediately, but I did not move from the couch. I didn't set out the next day either to write the paper about the guy who lost his nose. I didn't call Mark and ask him to marry me again. I didn't start to work on becoming the incredibly talented and extraordinarily brilliant and successful writer. Instead, I ordered pizza and listened to that one Lucinda Williams CD that I could not ever get enough of. And after a few days, I went back to my job waiting tables. I let my uterus heal and then slept at least once with each of the 5 guys who worked in the kitchen. I did, however, hold on to one intention, and I set about fulfilling it. I was going to take a long walk. 1,638 miles to be exact, alone.
Mark and I had filed the papers for our divorce. My stepfather was going to marry the woman he started dating immediately after my mother died. I wanted to get out of Minnesota. I needed a new life, and originally I was going west to find it. I decided to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, a wilderness trail that runs along the backbone of the Sierra Nevada and the Cascade Mountains from Mexico to Canada. Rather, I decided to hike a large portion of it, from the Mojave Desert in California to the Columbia River at the Oregon-Washington border. It would take me 4 months. I'd grown up in the country, done a good amount of camping, and taken a few weekend backpacking trips. But I had a lot to learn. how, for example, to read a topographical map, ford a river, handle an ice axe, navigate using a compass, and avoid being struck by lightning. Everyone who knew me thought that I was nuts. I proceeded anyway, researching, reading maps, dehydrating food, and packing it into plastic bags and then into boxes that would be mailed at roughly 2 week intervals to the ranger stations and post offices I'd occasionally pass near.
I packed my possessions and stored them in my stepfather's barn. I took off my wedding ring and put it into a small velvet box and moved my mother's wedding ring from my right hand to my left. I was going to drive to Portland first and then leave my truck with a friend and fly to LA and take a bus to the start of the trail. I drove through the flatlands and badlands and black hills of South Dakota, a positive that I'd made a vast mistake. Deep in the night, I pulled into a small camping area in the Bighorn Mountains of Wyoming and slept in the back of my truck. In the morning, I climbed out to the site a field of blue flowers that went right up to the Tongue River. I had the place to myself. It was spring and still cold, but I felt compelled anyway to go into the river. I decided I would perform something like a baptism to initiate this new part of my life. I took my clothes off and plunged in. The water was like ice, so cold it hurt. I dove under 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, then dashed out and dried off and dressed. As I walked back to my truck, I noticed my hand. My mother's wedding ring was gone.
At first, I couldn't believe it. I'd believed that if I lost one thing, I would then be protected from losing another, that my mother's death would inoculate me against further loss. It is an indefensible belief, but it was there. The same way I believed that if I endured long enough, my mother would be returned to me. A ring is such a small thing, such a very small thing. I went down on my hands and knees and searched for it. I patted every inch of ground where I walked. I searched the back of my truck and my pockets, but I knew. I knew that the ring had come off in the river. Of course it had. What did I expect? I went to the edge of the water and thought about going back in, diving under again and again until I found it, but it was a useless idea, and I was defeated by it before I even began. I sat down on the edge of the water and cried. Tears, tears, so many kind of tears, so many ways of crying. I had collected them, mastered them. I was a priestess, a virtuoso of crying.
I sat in the mud on the bank of the river for a long time and waited for the river to give the ring back to me. I waited and thought about everything. I thought about Mark and my boat of life. I thought what I would say to him then, now, forever. You get it. I thought about the formerly gay organic farmer and the quite perverse poet and a terribly large Texas bull rider and the 5-line cooks I had on separate occasions over the course of 1 month. I thought about how I was never again going to sleep with anyone who had a title instead of a name. I was sick of it, sick of fucking, of wanting to fuck the wrong people and not wanting to fuck the right ones. I thought about how if you lose a ring in a river, you are never going to get it back, no matter how badly you want it or how long you wait. I leaned forward and put my hands into the water and held them flat and open beneath the surface. The soft current made rivulets over my bare fingers. I was no longer married to Mark. I was no longer married to my mother. I was no longer married to my mother. I couldn't believe that this thought had never occurred to me before, that it was her I would have been faithful to all along, and that I couldn't be faithful any longer.
If this were fiction, what would happen next? Next is that the woman would stand up and get into her truck and drive away. It wouldn't matter that the woman had lost her mother's wedding ring, even though it was gone to her forever, because of the loss would mean something else entirely. That what was gone was actually her sorrow and the shackles of grief, and that had held her down. And in this loss, she would see, and that the reader would know, that the woman had been in error all along. That indeed, the love she'd had for her mother was too much love, really too much, and love also too much sorrow. She would realize this and get on with her life. There would be what happened in the story and also everything it stood for. The river, representing life's constant changing, the tiny blue flowers, beauty, the spring air, rebirth. All of these symbols would collide and mean that the woman was actually lucky to have lost the ring, and not just to have lost it, but to have loved it, to have ached for it, and to have had it taken from her forever. So story would end, and would know that she was better for it. That she was river, that she was wiser, stronger, more interesting, and most of all, finally starting down her path to glory. I will show you the leaf when it unfurls in a single motion, the end of one thing, the beginning of another, and you would know the answers to all the questions without being told. Did she ever write the 5-page paper about the guy who lost his nose? Did she ask Mark to marry her again? Did she stop sleeping with people who had titles instead of names? Did she manage to walk 1,638 miles? Did she get to work and become incredibly talented and extraordinarily brilliant and successful writer? We believe the answers to all these questions to be yes. I would have given you what I wanted then, and to be a witness to healing.
But this isn't fiction. Sometimes the story is not about anything except what it is about. Sometimes you wake up and find that you actually have lost your nose. Losing my mother's wedding ring in a tongue river was not okay. I did not feel better for it. It was not a passage or a release. What happened is that I lost my mother's wedding ring, and I understood that I was not going to get it back. That it would be yet another piece of my mother that I would not have for all of the days of my life. And I understood that I could not bear this truth, but that I would have to. Healing is a small and ordinary and very burnt thing. And it's one thing, and it's one thing only. It's doing what you have to do. It's what I did then and there. I stood up and got into my truck and drove away from a part of my mother. The part of her that had been my lover, my wife, my first love, my true love, the love of my life.
Let's breathe and let's journal. Your immediate responses, what comes up for you. Take your time, go through. If you have access to it on your phone or your computer, go through the piece so that you can skim through. You're going to take 10 minutes. Stretch, get up, move around. But you have 10 minutes to look at the piece again, find the lines that resonate, the words, the things that like made you pause, what you liked, what you didn't like, what worked, what didn't work. You're looking at everything. You're looking at description. You're looking at tone. You're looking at voice. You're looking at whatever felt painful to you and true. And make sure you write those quotes down and we'll talk about them. And you all can keep writing the comments, and then when we all share, I'll share what you all write. So you're writing for 10 minutes, okay? If you're picking a quote, why did you pick that quote? What was it about that quote? How could you use that quote as a jump off? What lines would you steal that you were like, yo, that was dope? Cheryl Strayed. She wrote a book called Wild. She's a beast. She's a beast.
Real good.
I'm trying to, but it's just so much. I mean, you wanted to pray for me, but just very happy. She's going There's stuff that you get into to strengthen families.
About 4 minutes left.
I never registered, but I put online. It came with we just. I found on the Sun magazine.
Let's see if it went to this. Let me see if it went to this. All right, I'm just searching.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. Because I didn't- Oh, yeah.
I'm okay. I can just have a
I had to mistake this phone. I'm gonna go on Amazon. They have good stuff with prices. Laptop is there. Okay.
You have 1 minute.
Attaching this.
All right, let's wrap up. Woo! Let's talk about Cheryl Strayed. How we feeling? How we feeling? So listen, how we would be doing writing from the womb is you would be getting these essays ahead of time, and we wouldn't spend an hour reading an essay. You would already have come annotating the document with your notes. We would discuss it because what we're doing to be better writers, we have to be readers. And so I believe in that. I believe in us reading things on craft. So it'll be a balance of a lot of different, genres, hybrid writing, styles of writing, a mix of things to get us thinking about, because my passion is fiction, but my go-to, it's like I can't get away from nonfiction to save my life. It's always pulling me back. So whoever let's look at what family's saying here on the live chat. We received free government cheese. This brought so many memories. The big cardboard box with thick slices of very yellow cheese. That was Maryland, but makes the best mac and cheese though. Eileen resonates with me. The fact of moving on from grief, being touched, feelings, letting go. Death and grief, the connection, convincing my mother to continue her education and thinking she was too old or not worthy. Latinos que siempre están de luto. The Latinos are always in grief. They're always mourning someone after someone passes in the family. And if they don't, it's a form of disrespect. But this is not fiction. Sometimes a story is not about, this is Tawana, but this is not fiction. Sometimes a story is not about anything except what it is about. Healing is a small and ordinary and very burnt thing. Marilyn says, what does it mean to heal? Whatever it means, it's usually said and not done. And the people who talk about it the most have almost never had to do it. Also says, this spoke to me because we never talk about healing or how to heal. In my family, we always talk about being strong because our kids need us and we can't seem weak to them. We hide our intergenerational trauma and never heal from it because we don't know how, or we are frowned upon if we seem weak. Juvie says, what spoke to me was the narrative she gave of her mother, a woman with dreams, her aspirations to pursue different things, and how that memory is honored and intertwined with her personal narrative of loss, pain, healing. Tawana says, like a raw nerve. I want you to share one quote and why you chose it. And overall, like your feelings of the piece in general, because I'm always curious about what I select. Yes.
So I felt that this was extremely wrong, and very, very descriptive. Like everything was described in detail.
Do you have a specific thing you want to
Yes.
note? Which like place you were like, yo, that description, she killed it.
Well, in speaking, because when you asked me earlier to think about can love and pain exist together, so it brought me to this right away. In two parts. The one where she says to experience sexual joy, it seemed it would negate the reality of losing her mom. And I felt that because years back, my brother passed, and I had a boyfriend then, and he wanted to have sex. And I'm like, dude, like my brother just passed. How am I supposed to switch that part and now go into, feel sexual with you? So that struck a nerve. And also the part where she says that Mark hated her, yet he went to find her wherever she was and dragged her back home. So he loves her. I mean, he hates her, yet he loves her enough to go and get her, to go save her from whatever hell she was in. So that's something.
Excellent. Someone else? Anyone? We'll go here, and then we'll come back.
Okay, so the one that spoke to me right away is grief is the thing that we're encouraged to let go of, to move on from. And I think that's something that we have to sit down and really go through. And it doesn't take a certain amount of steps, and it doesn't take a certain amount. Everybody's different. And she mentioned all these steps of, depression, acceptance, and all that. You could do that in different forms. And just going through that myself, it's never that easy, and nobody ever tells you this is how you're supposed to do that. So just going through that, I'm not sure. The life doesn't always go the way you want it to go. So even though you say these are the steps, put the black thing, go through the crying and the 9 days or whatever, and you keep going, and it's not true. It can come back to you years later. It doesn't have to be 1 month, like she said, or 2 months, or 2 years, or 5 years.
Thank you.
The part that resonated with me was, what does it mean to heal, to move on? Whatever it means, it is usually said and not done. So my response to that was, I now realize what is missing in my life is that I have not told my story to my mother. My story, the story of me not becoming the priest that she wanted me to be, the father she thought I could be, and most of all, the emotional dependence that my mother thought I had developed because of the last 5 children she raised. The one that was able to be quote unquote successful was me. And then I said the one she thought was the most put together is the one who has not been able to hold myself together. And then I said, I further realized that I don't necessarily have to directly tell my mother my story, but instead I could talk about my story with the license of a third person whom I had come, and that person, and it made me realize why Magdalena Popa Rivera was such an important person in my life, because Magdalena Popa Rivera represents the story that I want to tell about myself.
Whew. Listen, can I just say before, so you're going, right?
I think somebody else was.
Someone raised their hand on this side though, no?
Yeah, it was me.
You, then you. But I want to say something. I want to read the story about the priest. What? That, like, for me, I was like, oh, there's a story there, an incredible story. Oh yeah. So yeah, we will talk more about that. Thank you.
One of the quotes, so I had a few, but one of them that really got to me was when she said, we do not help them, when she's talking about people grieving. We tell them that they need to get help. And so I feel like here she's just expressing how grief is all encompassing, and it can even alter like yourself, like the self. And not only that, but it can be seen as an inconvenience if anyone is still grieving past like the 5 business days that you're allowed for bereavement at work. And it's like, okay, you're back, like you grieved. Why are you still grieving?
Oh,
so
thank you.
So I wanted to piggyback on what he said, because the one that spoke to me was also about healing, about how people say that they heal and all this stuff. I was saying that this entire piece made me think about my own story and how I want to tell it. The idea of understanding my mom's story and how it closely relates to mine is something I feel so powerful for me to explore, because it has allowed me to understand my own. When Cheryl speaks about letting go of her mother as she drives, I felt that similar to how I feel like I've been carrying things that haven't been my job to carry, not because they were given to me, but because they were passed down. So they are the same age as my mom when she had me, and I feel like it's time for me to let this go. This being the trauma that haunted her and continues to haunt me. This idea of understanding one's story fully is super powerful, but I think it starts with understanding your mom's. The main idea of death in this piece is something that gave me chills. Because I read it earlier and I was just like, the fact that I feel so like it evokes emotion in me. I know that I felt it. But I feel like I'm crying over things and I'm grieving over things that I haven't even lost. And I feel like that has been the theme in my life, and I know that I have to get it. I have to let it go. And then I'm also looking at my phone, and at the same time we're reading this piece about death, and I find out that Kobe Bryant passed away.
What?
He just passed away.
Helicopter accident.
Yeah.
What?
So it just
Really?
happened.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be.
I don't want to be that person. So
I was reading this and I'm just.
It was him and his 13-year-old daughter.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I
Way.
but it's like it's so relevant, and I'm just like I feel like the whole world is probably feeling.
Yeah.
It's this idea of feeling for someone else that has passed, and it's like, right, but how did one? And then my boyfriend is home right now crying, so now I have to go console him because there's a staple in our childhood.
Yeah.
So it's like this idea of understanding where that feeling comes from, because I don't know him, but that I feel that.
Can we take a moment?
Yeah.
Please.
Can we take a moment of silence and just to acknowledge this massive loss in our in pop culture, right? And like he was a father, a human, someone that we admire, an athlete, an icon. So let's take a moment just of silence to honor his life, his legacy, the people who love him, and that baby girl, like the people who are suffering right now and carrying all that and whose worlds are completely shaken right now. Loose for his spirit. Whoa, shit. Damn. Thank you for sharing that with us, because it's important that we acknowledge like people who are great and that we love and look up to. Oh, he's a hero. Who else? Another quote, something that really, yeah. Oh, no, wait, no, you. I'm sorry, my love. Tú dijiste. You had something?
Well, I would say that it was really well written.
Yeah.
A little bit of despair,
Mhm.
circle, like going back to the same point. Like
Yeah.
there was no time.
Repetition.
Repetition.
She does a lot of repetition.
I summarize my feeling about that. Like I describe it, it's like a roller coaster of emotion in a dead pond.
A lot of, say it again.
A roller coaster.
A roller coaster of
emotions
emotion.
in a dead pond.
In a dead pond. Damn. Beautiful. Yeah. She definitely conveys that, right? She takes you into the darkness. I picked Cheryl Strayed because she's so raw and honest, and I didn't want to bring anything fluff. Because the truth is, if we're writing from the womb, we're writing from the most honest place that we have. And it fucking hurts, and it's ugly, and it's dirty, and it's gritty. And so, yeah. So thank you for that. I'll come back to you, Jazz.
Okay, so the quote that resonated with me was the one that said, "Tears, tears. So many kinds of tears, so many ways of crying. I had collected them, mastered them. I was a priestess, a virtuoso of crying." I see myself in this quote. I do. I remember years ago, I had a little girlfriend when I was young. and we had just broken up, and I was crying, and I was in my best friend's house, and my best friend's dad says, "Let me ask you a question." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Do you still have your mom?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You shouldn't be crying." He says, "When you lose your mother, that is the worst pain you ever go through. So whatever you're going through right now, you shouldn't be crying about." I understand that, but that doesn't mean that I haven't grieved losses.
That you don't know grief.
Right.
That you don't know loss.
Exactly. I've
Yeah.
lost myself so many times.
Right.
And have
That's great.
resurrected from me dying
I
so
love
many
that.
deaths. You
Word.
know what I mean? So I know grief in other ways. No, I haven't lost my mother. Thank God I'm 39 years old and I still have both my parents to this day.
Amen.
Both married, both still together. They're my foundation. So
Yeah.
no, I don't know that loss. But
Yeah.
have I lost? Yes, many times.
Have you written that down, what you just said?
That
That you have died
No, you need to
many times. Write that down, please.
Yeah.
You have died. What did she say? I've died and resurrected. I have died many times and resurrected many times.
Yeah, that I'm lost. Yeah, the loss of myself. Yeah.
Because as I think about Bronx Pussy, which, you know, I'm a big fan of already, the title, there are a lot of deaths that happen even with who we give our bodies to, and how they continue to live in our bodies. So there's a lot to unpack there. Well done. Yeah,
I didn't necessarily have
a quote.
a quote that was my favorite, but I
Mhm.
did have a quote that made me think about the other parts of Cheryl that she's not sharing here. When she shared that opening, anecdote about the man crossing her, inviting her, she said, "Well, it was only a kiss, but it was a crossing." So that told me that she was in tune with the fact that he had crossed the boundary because she was so vulnerable and so open to this,
Older
it was
man.
just an adventure or someone to get her out of this reality that she was mourning. But it made me think about when was the first time that she was violated sexually that led to these choices that she made, like what led to her wanting to share her body and not orgasm, but share these fleeting. I wrote something about her sharing these fleeting moments that have to do with unattached joy and unattached pleasure. Like she wanted to experience these feelings, but in a way that was unattached, almost so it wouldn't stay in her consciousness. I feel so. I just feel like she had some type of sexual abuse that happened earlier on.
What's the story behind the story? What's not being
so
said?
that's what it made me think about.
And that's what we do as readers, right? And as writers, because we are reading as writers right now. We are looking at what they're doing and what that, so know that our audience is going to find those holes too and say, ooh, there's something here that's not being said. So where she's raw and honest and vulnerable and gritty, I'm not going to tell you this story. I'm going to leave this out, which she has every right to. I think that when we're ready to really tell our truth fully, I'm a person that I speak my truth, but there's some shit I don't need you to know. That's just for me. Yeah. You have something?
The quote that stood out to me is, "I needed my stepfather to be the kind of man who would suffer for my mother, unable to go on, who would carry a torch. And if he wouldn't, I would." And so I was just thinking about that torch bearing that we sort of take on, and how usually it's seen as this noble and honorable thing, this beautiful thing to write someone's story, right, or carry someone's story or legacy. But the crushing weight and the burden it is to do right by someone is messy and difficult. To write my mother's story is to carry out a responsibility she never gave me, but I have to do it. And that is the healing that Stray talks about, doing what you have to do.
Well done. Well, my loves, we're gonna wind down because it's a lot. Today is a lot. And I want to read. Let me read what everyone else wrote, and then we can close. Marilyn says, "What does it mean to heal?" Did I say that already? What does it mean to heal? Whatever it means, it's usually said. Oh no, she said that already. She said that already. Tawana says, "What I love most is that the author tackles the messiness of grief. It is not orderly or something that happens in stages." Yeah, I love that. Marilyn says, "I think that Edgar, what does it mean to heal? Damn, that just gave me chills when he spoke on what it means to him and what he needs to do, tell his mother his story. That wasn't Edgar. Tell me your name.
Freddie.
Freddie. It was Freddie. Julie says, my husband and I are in tears about this. Your husband and you are in the workshop together? What's up? A family that writes together stays together. Julie, also one line that resonated deeply was when she said that she realized she was married to her mother. Yes, nobody said that. That was the line that fucked me up when I read it the first time. I've read this 3. It was like, whoa, like how, I'm still unpacking that. Like how true that is, like what that love is.
How she didn't realize that till that moment. Like,
Yeah.
I was married to my mother.
Girl, listen. Well done. So I want to give you some info. That is Writing from the Womb. That is our intro. I would give you more writing right now, but honestly, I could feel in the room that we are tired. And this is a lot. But we are going to write our asses off. And so Writing from the Womb is starting on February 9th. Not next Sunday, the following. You're going to receive, and for those of you who are interested in enrolling and are signing up on Dominican Writers Association, all the info will be posted tomorrow. Those of you who are interested in taking Writing from the Womb online, that is also going to be available. But the links, how that will work is I'll either record it and send it after, or I do something privately that people can log on from home. So if you're someone who's here in New York and you can't make it and you want to do it from home, that's an option too, right? You can participate with everyone else who's doing the live stream. And so the dates are, so it's 9 weeks. It's February 9th, February 16th, February 23rd, March 8th, March 15th, March 22nd, March 29th, and I'm waiting for the last 2 dates to confirm. I have to talk to the organizers here at Word Up, but would be April 19th and 26th. And the weekly sessions are readings, assignments, discussion, writing that is required for every class, close analytical reading of assigned weekly readings, close reading of author, writers, methodology and framework, creative responses to prompts, taking detailed notes. I prefer that you bring hard copies. So if there's something that we're sharing, that we bring copies for the group, we can share, we can look, I know that finances are not the same for everywhere, but we'll work it out. We'll figure out how we use all our technology to serve each other. And the syllabus will go out once you've made your deposit. That just shows that you enrolled. So week 1.
Yeah, could we backtrack on that?
Let's backtrack.
So if you go on DominicanWriters.com and you go on the tab that says Writers on the top, scroll down to Writing Workshops and you'll find Alicia's Writing Workshop, where you'll be able to sign up for the 9-week classes.
Mhm.
It's $45 a week, and it gets automatically deducted from your from whatever payment
Option you chose.
option you
Every
chose.
week.
Yes, every week. What else? Yeah, so you pay through PayPal, and PayPal automatically takes out the $45 every week until you're fully paid. It's set for the 9 weeks, so don't worry that you'll overpay or anything. So that's set up on the website. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted
That's
to
the
share
same
about
fee
that.
for those who are doing it online.
Yes.
So what do the weeks look like? Week 1 is our writing goals, owning the story. Week 2 is our practice and discipline. Week 3 is voice. Week 4 is we're doing edits, revisions. We're really looking at that. Week 5 is workshop 1. What a workshop is that we will be having group workshops. We have one-on-one workshops where you will be assigned a partner that holds you accountable, that you're sharing and building with, but then we have group workshops. So the larger group and smaller groups, that's really useful to help build and take our story forward. Week 6 is Write Like a Motherfucker. Week 7 is putting ourselves out there. We're talking about submission. We are hitting send together. We're going to begin to really look at ourselves in a different way. So yes, it's going to be a fun time. Week 8 is our second workshop, and week 9 is the final workshop in our potluck celebration. Cool. And yes, it's potluck. Yes, everybody brings something. Un serrucho. We bring wine, and yeah, we give each other like all the love, and talk about like next steps and.
And can I also share
Yes.
that because you sign up to this workshop, we want to give you a discount to the Writers Conference in May.
Yay.
Okay, so I don't know what that discount will be yet, but it'll be something that you appreciate because the tickets go on sale at the end of February. We're now reviewing proposals.
Yes.
So if you don't know about the Writers Workshop, last May we held the first Dominican Writers Workshop, open to all writers of color. You do not need to be Dominican. So we offered 15 writing workshops and 13 panel discussions in one day at City College. We had about 300 people in attendance. This year, the conference is going to be also in City College. It's sponsored by the MFA program in creative writing, and it's a 2-day conference. So you'll be able to sign up for both days, which we encourage. But seeing how you're working on your writing, and maybe you're coming to this workshop because you have something that you want to start or you want to finish, we will have manuscript reviewers at the conference.
Yes.
And manuscript reviewers are editors or literary agents who work with publishing houses that want to sit down with you for 15 minutes and review what you have. Whether it's 10 pages, whether it's a chapter, it'll be on you'll be able to book their service via our website when it's up. Hopefully also when we sell the tickets, you'll be able to book the manuscript service. So aside from the ticket, the manuscript service is an additional fee of $45, and that fee goes straight to the person who's reviewing your work. So, which means that you'll have to have something prepared in accordance to their guidelines. You have to send it to them by the specific deadline, and they'll come to the conference and sit down with you and review your manuscript with you. And that service is only open to conference goers. It's not that you're like, I don't want to go to the conference, but I want to get my manuscript reviewed. No, it's only open to conference goers. So you must have a conference ticket in order for you to be able to book a service with editors and literary agents. And if you don't know, this service that we negotiated for $45, if you go to any other conference, you're gonna pay upwards of $300 to sit down with a literary agent. So
It's expensive.
I encourage you all to please take advantage of this service. I know so many people that hit me up and DM me that they're working on a book, that they're about to self-publish, that they're doing, about to start something or whatnot. So I want to encourage you guys to at least have 10 pages written from now till May.
Oh, they will have more than 10 pages.
I mean,
yes.
And if you guys need someone to look at your work, if you email me, I could, pair you up with an editor from our team that could look over your stuff and whatnot.
That's only for Dominican writers.
No, it's open to all writers of color.
All writers of color.
I can be in Spanish.
So I'm trying to find a literary agent, but they don't reply. I don't know what's wrong with us Latinos. I'm like.
So yes, write yours in Spanish.
Write yours in Spanish, but I cannot guarantee that we're gonna have someone there.
We have to find it. Tenemos que buscarlo. We have to find it.
Because I have HarperCollins and Random House, they have their Spanish section, and they're just so difficult. Like they're like, hit me up, and then I hit them up, and they don't reply to email.
Esta niña that I'm due to Joanna. I'm waiting for her email. Okay, but I'm gonna hit her up too.
Can I ask you a question? How much is the conference?
We haven't set up the fee yet because we're going to set it in accordance to the content that we're providing you.
Right.
So last year the conference was $75.
Yeah. It's gonna be an increase.
Yeah, this year is not gonna be the same price.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be an early bird price.
Yeah.
So,
but it's also a 2-day conference, so we're giving a lot more, so it's gonna be increased for sure. Because we're offering a lot more this year.
Yeah, so we definitely want to encourage you guys to attend both days. So set those days apart, May 2nd and May 3rd. It's from 11 to 6 p.m. at City College of New York. If you subscribe to our website, you get all the information because I'm putting out information. I'm doing more live conversations on IG like every Tuesday to get people geared up for the conference and remind you guys that this is coming up. And just share other information or answer any questions that you guys may have about the conference. But the conference is not, it's put together by Dominican writers, but it's for
Everyone.
writers of all colors.
Everyone is welcome.
Everyone is
Every
welcome.
nationality, all races, all genders, everyone.
Yeah, I just want to say that I attended last year and it was wonderful. I think it was brilliant actually. It was a really great time.
Thank you.
But I'm glad that it's a 2-day, because last year wasn't a 2-day.
No.
Last year was the 1 day.
And it was a lot.
And I just
It
felt
was
like
a lot.
we needed more
Yeah,
time.
there was a lot packed in one day.
Yeah.
So
It was
lot
a lot
packed.
to pack in one
The
day
energy was
because
everything.
people wanted to attend more than one workshop, and it was just
Right. At the same time.
Yeah.
And so like
So now
finding the
we're
balance. It
figuring
was the
out
first
the
year.
balance.
Any questions about the Dominican Writers Conference, about writing from the womb? Now is your time. Any questions?
The last 2 days or 2 days determined.
Yeah, the last 2 dates, they're going to be in April. They're going to be in April, and they'll always be Sundays. Yes.
So if I know for sure there'll be like 1 or 2 Sundays that I may not. Oh, Saturdays I may not. I can still do it online.
You can you'll have if you're paying for the class. Yeah, you have access to it online, to watch it, to replay it, to take your notes. Yeah.
So it won't be live. It'll be recorded.
I have to take a temperature of those attending to see what they're comfortable with. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be here each time. Yeah.
How long is the class?
1 to 5.
Very quickly.
Yes, of course.
It was 9, 16, and 23rd of February.
Yes.
And then 8, 15, and 29th of March. Yes.
Hang on a second. We have why can't I find my dates? We have February 9th. When is Semana Santa?
I don't know, but I know
It's,
it probably wouldn't be a good time to meet.
When is the Good Friday weekend and Easter?
It's the 10th, April 10th.
Yeah, April 10th.
Easter is
We don't have
the
a block.
12th.
Yeah, we don't have a block. We don't have a class those days. So we're fine. So February 9th, February 16th, February 23rd, March 8th, March 15th, March 22nd, March 29th, and then April 19th and April 26th are the last 2 days I have to confirm. We writing. All right, we're going to go around the room. We're going to close up because I know that word up. They want to go home to their families. We want to go home and rest. I want to hear what you're taking with you today, what you received. What are you taking with you? Whoever wants to go.
This energy.
This energy.
This energy.
Gotcha. What are you taking with you?
That all our stories are important.
Beautiful. What are you taking with you?
Right.
Right.
The importance of a mentor text.
Yes, yes. What are you taking with you?
Motivation.
Okay.
I'm so motivated to write the story and
Okay.
motivated to motivate you guys and to hear your stories.
Excellent. Action. What are you taking with you?
Finding what you were born.
Ooh. Y'all on the video, I want to hear what you're taking with you. What are you taking with you?
Solidarity. Because there's a lot of people. I didn't know that in Washington Heights. We have people who had in the same en la misma onda que uno, in the same page, and they want to do the same.
You found your people.
You found your
Yeah.
people.
When
You didn't even know.
When he wasn't even looking.
He wasn't even looking.
You know, the reality that I came here to see an old friend, because yo no tengo muchos amigos aquí porque tengo 3 años, and then I saw this, y a mí me gusta escribir de hace años, yo estoy escribiendo. Entonces, yo no pude ni hablar con ella.
Look at that. So now you gotta go see him. That's awesome. Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home. What are you taking with you?
Motivation and clarity.
Hey, what are you taking with you?
Community.
I could say finding my voice in writing.
I say finding also the clarity of knowing what I want to write about. I didn't know what I wanted to do. You asked the question. I had like 5.
That's okay. We could have 100, but we got to pick one. We can have all the ideas. I'm a fan of ideas. What are we taking with us? We are beautiful people with many layers and perspectives. Ache, Marilyn. We give each other strength and encouragement to tell our stories, that our narratives matter and must be shared. Inspiration and the vibe, even online. I'm so happy and grateful that Angie shared. Most importantly, connections on and offline. And we are not alone. Yes. What I'm taking with me is all of you, all of this love, all of this confirmation. You all said yes. You all showed up for yourselves. I had no idea who would come because Andrew was like, we have 32 people RSVP'd. And I'm like, whoever comes is meant to be here. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you for trusting me. Truly. Thank you for trusting me. I don't take this lightly. This is a very important role in my life. And so I appreciate you all. And I can't wait to see who's coming back. Know that you have a home, that we're here. And I'm everywhere. You email me, you have my email, anything you need. Even if you don't enroll and you want some support, I'm around. So hit me up. All right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of this Sunday. Have an amazing week. Right. And I'll see some of you on February 9th. My loves, thank you for joining. Today was amazing. Yes, Tawana, motivation and rebirth. I miss you. I can feel that. We will talk. You're very welcome. I'll speak to you all soon.